Hello, my name is Don Ravines, Coordinating Chair of Nevada County Climate Action Now. Earth Week is a great time for us to think about what we can do to stop climate change. Nevada County Climate Action Now brings together a diverse group of people to educate our community about the climate crisis, stir people into action, and promote clean and renewable energy. As part of this effort, Climate Action Now has worked with Nevada County, Grass Valley, and Nevada City to create energy action plans to reduce our use of electricity and natural gas, which contribute to climate change. These plans call for thousands of Nevada County residents to voluntarily retrofit their homes in the next 14 years for greater energy efficiency. Why are our local governments making these commitments? Scientists have proven that the gases created by our use of energy are making Earth's climate warmer. Average temperatures already have risen in our area for over the last 125 years. This has led to California's droughts being longer and more severe. Our patterns of rain and snowfall are changing, which endangers our water supply. Wildfires are more frequent and more severe. We can reduce these dangers that threaten all of us by reducing our energy use. By working together, ordinary people like you and me can keep Nevada County safe. The great news is by taking these steps at home to conserve energy, you will save lots of money on your energy bill. Here are 5 steps you can reduce your energy footprint and save money on your energy bill. These steps are analysis, conservation, efficiency, managing your appliances, and renewable energy. The first step is analyze how your home uses energy. A member of Climate Action Now named Chris decided to make her home more energy efficient. She contacted a company and asked them to do an energy audit. The company first sealed her home with plastic and blew air in and out. They found that the house was leaking energy down into her crawl space and up through the attic. Air was escaping through the seams where the walls meet the ceiling. The energy audit suggested measures to reduce Chris' energy use, such as caulking air conditioning and heating ducts to make them all airtight. The second step is energy conservation. Simple behavioral changes can make an immediate and long-lasting impact on the amount of fuel and electricity a building uses. Turn off lights, fans, and electronic devices when not in use. Adjust your furnace settings for the season. Chris went through the house and replaced the remaining incandescent bulbs with LED bulbs. The third step is energy efficiency. This step upgrades heating and cooling equipment and installs appliances that are energy efficient. It makes a building airtight to reduce energy loss. These upgrades can save you money and qualify for tax deductions. Chris's house had a propane furnace, so she faced the decision to caulk the ducts and connecting points and stop there, or to additionally to replace the 30-year-old propane furnace. First, she had insulation installed in the crawl space and attic. Then she installed one electric heat pump furnace in the crawl space and one in the attic. During the furnace replacement, the propane water heater failed. This gave her the opportunity to replace it with an efficient electric one. The fourth step is time of use management. You can reduce your energy bit by changing the time of day you run your appliances. For example, use the washer and dryer in off-peak hours, generally 12 a.m. to 10 a.m., thus avoiding the demand charge from PG&E. Chris avoided energy peak periods by using her washer in the morning and hanging clothes out to dry. The fifth step is renewable energy. By doing the first 4 steps, you will have minimized the potential costs of renewable energy. Chris already had 36 solar panels that she installed in 2007. She also recently replaced her diesel car with an electric car. After all the energy efficiencies and the replacement of propane appliances, she needed 9 more solar panels to become 100% renewable. The end result is that she saved $1,200 annually on her energy bills. Additionally, she saves 30,000 kilowatt hours per year and 2,700 pounds of CO2 emissions. By making these changes at her home, Chris both saves money and helps Nevada County, Grass Valley, and Nevada City meet their commitments to reducing our community's energy consumption. These voluntary goals depend on ordinary people like Chris taking steps at our homes and businesses to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions. Some of the 5 steps mentioned here are costly and may not be feasible for you. Others will take some planning. It will take time for us to achieve these goals. But by all of us working together and doing our part, we can reduce the energy impacts that lead to wildfires that threaten our neighborhoods. We can stop the climate warming that makes droughts more severe and threatens our snowpack. Please take a look at our website, ncclimateactionnow.org/energy, for more information on energy action plans. Look for the toolkit of energy savings ideas. We urge you to do your part to keep our communities safe. My name is Don Ravines, Coordinating Chair of Nevada County Climate Action Now. Thanks.
When I first started studying the Deer Creek watershed, I thought it was just a small creek running through my backyard. If you're on land, you're in a watershed. I quickly learned that watershed issues are global, and cultural history, like water, sends out ripples that have effects that linger for hundreds, possibly thousands of years. The accounts of the abundance of gold in that territory are of such an extraordinary character as would scarcely command belief were they not corroborated by the authentic reports of officers in the public service. Of Scott's Flat Reservoir, which is at the east end, is the approximate location of the Laird and Chambers Dam. Unfinished, it failed on February 15, 1857, flooding Nevada City, ripping several buildings from footings, and taking out 2 bridges which included the Pine Street Bridge. Merchants had 15 hours advance warning, but ignored it and later filed a lawsuit for damages. It's interesting to note the origination of Nevada City fires: arson, a kitchen accident in the National Hotel, a boarding house, Virginia House, Hughes Blacksmith Shop, a Chinese wash house, the Bedrock Saloon, and the Nevada City Rancheria had a fire in 1867. The Nevada City Nisenan tribe held a large celebration after receiving half of 16 oxen that were killed when the Pine Street suspension bridge collapsed from faulty construction. In 1850, Lorenzo Sawyer coined the phrase coyoteing on Buckeye Hill, which was near American Hill. Shafts were sunk only 6 or 8 feet deep. When bedrock was reached, the miner worked on hands and knees within a 30-foot claim, brought dirt to the surface by means of a windlass, and hauled it 1/2 to 1 mile to Deer Creek to be washed. In the American Hill area, between Hirschman's Pond and the Tribute Trail Suspension Bridge, there were 14 Nisenan villages that included 5 roundhouses. The ravines were thick with miners, and American Hill covered with tents, brush houses. Edward Matson invented the high-pressure water hose used for hydraulic mining in 1853. Oregon and Buckeye Hills in the area were completely washed away by hydraulic mining. Hirschman's Cut was the last hydraulic mining site in Nevada City, operating after the 1884 Sawyer decision. Methylated mercury can travel through the food web. When fish eat food contaminated with methylated mercury, they can pass it on to humans. In 1898, the Nevada County Board of Supervisors awarded a contract to the Cotton Brothers Company out of Oakland to build 2 metal truss bridges, one at Deer Creek and one at Rock Creek. 1851, approximately 30 enslaved Africans were brought from the Miami area to work this quartz mine. Less than a year later, after the mine owner was killed in an accidental shooting, most of them, now free, left for other opportunities. One man, Robert Sharper, continued to live in a small cabin on the property until his death in 1881. Local Nisenan tribal stories tell of people who lived in deep Deer Creek pools. They were one-legged and had wavy hair. They could live on land for a while after being caught by a fisherman. Under Lake Wildwood Water was the site of many Nisenan villages that included multiple roundhouses. It was also the site of the Anthony House stage stop and trading post. Nearby, 2 Chinese mining companies operated, the Ah Sin Company and the Sun Ah Yuen Company. For many years, this area was ranch lands. The Boise Cascade Company bought 11 ranches to build the Lake Wildwood community and its 15-foot deep lake. In summer and during warm drought years, some algal blooms can create oxygen-depleted dead water zones and produce aerosols harmful to humans and animals. Nitrogen loading causes algal blooms. Nitrogen loading is caused by wastewater treatment plant discharges, surface water runoffs of fertilizers, motor oil, soap and detergent phosphates, and animal waste. Where Deer Creek meets the Yuba River was a hot spot of hydraulic mining activity. It included camps such as Sucker Flat, Timbuktu, and Mooney Flat. Ophiolite, ocean floor rock, over 50 million years old, uplifted, is the reason we have gold here in this area. The Smartville Block is one of the only places you can see ophiolite on the surface of the planet. Aside from riverbed boulders, a large piece of polished ophiolite can be viewed in the UC Davis Arboretum. For over 20 years, hydraulic mining washed gravel, silt, debris, and heavy metals down the watersheds. Near Marysville, large deposits, enough to equal 500 Empire State Buildings, disrupted riverboat travel and buried up to 50 feet deep over 40,000 acres of farmlands. The hydraulic mining operations of defendants constitute a public nuisance, and that Congress, in granting and selling lands for mining purposes, could not give to purchasers any rights in any way to injure lands already belonging to other parties. the future of the communities depending directly upon the branch of mining industry does not seem particularly encouraging. The Marysville Appeal say Judge Sawyer's decision blots out a relic of barbarism and sustains civilization. This is decidedly refreshing. According to this, the bucolic regions of Marysville presents civilization in its highest development, and the mining regions of the Sierras is inhabited by barbarians. We do not deny that the mountaineers are more savage now than they were a week ago. With rock older than the imagination can comprehend, a rich First People history that miraculously survived the onslaught of mass foreign immigration, a mining culture that gave no thought to lasting hazards, to the vibrant art-centric community that enjoys outdoor activities, and dedicated organizations working to repair our toxic legacy. My Deer Creek watershed study expanded my view of our place on this planet, and it helped me collect a set of actions we can all do to make this place and every place inhabited by humans a little bit better. Nevada County and its water flowing through watersheds connects to the Delta, the Pacific Ocean, and the entire world.
told me a bottle couldn't dream, that I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly, just to come back in a new disguise and be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
Hello, I'm Erin Tarr, Executive Director of the Bear Yuba Land Trust. We're thrilled to be here today to celebrate Earth Day with NC Media and other local environmental organizations. At BYLT, the heart of our work is rooted in collaboration. For 31 years, we've been working with landowners to conserve critical wildlife habitat and agricultural areas to safeguard our community from climate change impacts and to protect the economic vitality of our working lands. To date, we have protected over 18,000 acres of land in Nevada and Yuba counties. We also collaborate with landowners to create trails that connect communities and provide spaces for people to connect with nature. Did you know that BYLT has built over 45 miles of local trail and is also responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of these public spaces? With the help of many dedicated volunteers and our wonderful staff, we're able to provide places to escape, exercise, and reconnect with ourselves and nature. Each and every member of our staff and board have deep connections to nature and to the land we work to protect. And we're committed to continuing to protect these open spaces and wild places for generations to come. Collaboration is the key to success that allows BYLT to reach its goals. And as Helen Keller famously said, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." And we're so lucky to have a community of environmental organizations and citizens that are all working toward the same goal, to create healthy and vibrant ecosystems and to create safe and sustainable areas for the public to experience the amazing outdoor opportunities that Nevada County has to offer. Today, on Earth Day 2021, we're celebrating 31 years of service to our community. We're in the midst of our membership drive, and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of our current members and to invite those who are not yet members to join us in our mission to protect and defend the natural and working lands of the Bear and Yuba River watersheds and to empower a healthy, resilient community through nature access and education. We couldn't do this without you. So please, celebrate our 31st year of service by hiking one of our trails or visiting one of our preserves, and make sure to check out our website at bylt.org. Land conservation is one of the most important actions that we as a community can undertake to mitigate climate change impacts. Our work protects critical wildlife migration corridors and safeguards areas for wildlife to take refuge as land conversion continues to impact their homes. By promoting smart growth and deterring sprawling development, we help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and protect landscapes which act as carbon sinks. And conservation easements provide multiple benefits by allowing landowners the ability to stay on their land, continue their agricultural operations, and to enhance the ecosystem services, or the benefits that nature provides us at no cost, such as recreation, wildlife habitat, and clean water. Our work is exciting, challenging, and very rewarding. Although 2020 was one of the hardest years in recent history for our community, BYLT was proud to be able to keep our trails and preserves open to the public so that there were places we could escape our homes in safe ways. We saw more use than ever before and responded by collaborating with other businesses and organizations to improve access. The most recent example is the Gracie Parking Lot Improvement Project for the Cascade Canal Trail. Partners in this project included Nevada County Contractors Association, Nevada County, C&D Construction, Hanson Brothers, Waste Management, Bruce Ivy Construction, Vulcan Materials, and Robinson Brothers. This was a huge team effort that created much needed expansion and enhancement for outdoor recreation access. I could go on for hours about our great work and our amazing partners, but we don't have that much time. So I'll leave you with one more quote by Leo Tolstoy. One of the first convictions of happiness is that the link between humans and nature shall not be broken. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the field soon.
Hello everyone, my name is Cody Wasuda, Restoration Coordinator here at Circle, and I'd like to welcome you to our first workshop of the day, the Ecology of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The Circle office sits on the ancestral home of the Nisenan tribe, and we work within the intertribal region of the Mountain Maidu, Concow, and Washoe peoples. At this point, I'd like to pass it over to our moderator today, Jose Gonzalez. Jose, please take it away.
Thank you so much, and I also greet you all from the ancestral tradition and stolen lands of Nisenan, Maidu, Miwok, and among many others in Northern California. And with this, we're going to start this session with an offering. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to one of our guests and panelists, Carla Murphy.
Inkata, 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 welcome, 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 welcome. Ka Inkara Carla Marie Munoz. Gaha Kosono and Rumsen Carmel tribe, Gaha Rumsen Ohlone. I'm speaking to you in Rumsen Ohlone, and I'm calling from the territory of Yelamu, where the spoken language was Ramaytush. It's in the Bay Area, present-day San Francisco. I'm here in representation and acknowledgement of the land and the suffering of the ancestors that came before me and the future that's ahead of me. I want to acknowledge that there was 3 genocides that happened to the California people here, but that we are still resilient today by evidence that I am still here, that we are still existing. There is an excess of 250 languages spoken here, diverse cultures, only in California. Those are many different cultures that are responsible for the landscapes that make up the beauty that is California. So I speak to you from my beautiful homeland, where it is an honor and a privilege to be here and connected. And I offer a song for the sun, the light source that we all need so much. Ishmen is the sun in our language, and it's the beginning of every day and a new start to all. So I offer this song for all of you, and to create space in your mind for what we're about to do today, and to remind you that we're still here, we still exist, our culture is alive and well. Oh, Inkata and Sharuru, blessings and thanks. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you. I want to make sure that everyone that's viewing this is able to sit with that offering. And it's a reminder that it comes with many facets. So please make sure that all of you were able to experience the offering hopefully in more ways that you might have been used to. And I have the privilege, really the opportunity for the privilege, I consider it a privilege given this group of peers and colleagues to be the moderator for this session, which has the title, The Ecology of DEI, and we'll unpack that a little bit more. I think we really want this to be a modeling and practicing of the types of conversations that, as Carla mentioned, that'll guide us forward, not ignoring the real harm of the past and present, And what do we mean about being able to change these components? So I'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of the framing of what the conversation that we will have here, as well as being able to take some questions from the audience. So know that as well. I also want to acknowledge that we'll be gentle with ourselves given everything that's going on right now, and that we're meeting to digital forums. So as pets, loved ones, significant others, disruptions in internet service happens, we'll still be here present with each other. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to have each of our panelists introduce themselves so that you get to hear from them how they want to be seen, heard, and valued in this space, and what they're offering you about themselves. We will start off with Francis, and then you'll pass it around until we conclude with everybody.
Jose. My name is Francis Mendoza, and I go by he, they, sila pronouns. I'm here on the unceded land of the Chochenyo Ohlone, here in present-day Union City, Tuibun land. And actually, you'd be surprised because my background is Mono territory over in the Eastern Sierra. But I want to acknowledge the original people who are still here with us today. And I'm a naturalist based out of the Oakland Bay area. And I'm also the director of the JEDI section of NAI. Lots of acronyms there, I know. But JEDI stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, Accessibility, and Inclusion. And NAI is the National Association for Interpretation. Thanks for having me.
You get to pass it on, Francis.
I'd like to pass it to Leslie.
Thank you, and hello everyone. My name is Leslie Parra, and I am currently living in San Francisco for the last 19 years. So I am lucky and honored to say that I am sharing this land with the Ramaytush and Ohlone people. And I would say that my career calling has been to foster and encourage underrepresented communities and connect and reconnect with science and nature and outdoor recreation and everything that involves that. And I'm also very happy to be the outreach program manager for Save the Redwoods League. And I believe that the Redwoods Forest and Sequoia Forest are iconic to California, and I'd love to see more representation of the populations that exist in California, in not just connecting, but in representation. And I am really very lucky to be here, and thank you for Jose for inviting me. And I will pass it on to my colleague and friend, Linnea Hartland.
Leslie. Hi, my name is Linnea Hartland, and I am joining everybody today from the Yosemite National Park area. And Yosemite is associated with 7 tribes that call this area their homeland. And as we have been saying, these people still live here in this area and are still present. And those tribes are the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation, the Bishop Paiute Tribe, the Bridgeport Indian Colony, the Mono Lake Kutzidika, North Fork Rancheria of Mono Indians of California, and the Picayune Rancheria of Chukchansi Indians, and finally the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians. And I'd also like to recognize that 2 of those tribes are still seeking justice and federal recognition, and those are the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation and the Mono Lake Kutzidika. As Leslie said, I am honored to be here and honored to be her colleague and friend at Save the Redwoods League, and my job there is Giant Sequoia Forest Fellow. And so I work within the Sequoia Range and specialize in fire ecology, but I'm also very passionate about education and connecting people to nature and to outdoor places. So thank you so much for having me here today. And lastly, but certainly not least, Carla.
Thank you so much. Ka'ingara Carla Marie Munoz, Gaha Ramson Aloni. I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. I'm here because of 7 generations of prayer. I'm here because my mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother prayed for me. And I'm gonna be here to influence my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. I'm here as a vessel for not only my people, but for my community. I'm here to share knowledge so that there may be understanding. I'm here standing today in a beautiful place that's like winning the cultural lottery for my tribe. I'm one of 2,000 that are separated from their ancestral homeland that now thrive here and can have an authentic connection with the land. I'm here because the California state recognizes me, but our government does not. I'm not a federally recognized Indian, but I know my ancestry. I know my deep-rooted history, and my people have been here for hundreds of thousands of years as caretakers of this land, but as pillars to show us how we can truly live in harmony with nature and not take too much. My present day job is I'm here working as a tribal councilwoman in recognition for my specific tribe, which is the Costanel Rumsen Carmel tribe. I specialize in cultural education and representation. I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of cultural educations within school programming, but most of all, I'm a facilitator for our youth in our own tribe and build authentic connections with the land, because since they're from Southern California, they don't get to come up here and have a richness or a closeness with this place. So most of my work is centered in creating an authentic relationship in present day spaces that aren't easy accessible. Most of our sacred sites are now owned by private landowners, maybe land trusts, state parks, regional parks, or federal parks. So I have to work in unison with these people as a tribal liaison in order for us to continue on our ceremony, to carry on our dances, and to learn about the ecology that these beautiful landscapes have to offer. And that's my spill. Thanks. Shivarudo.
Thank you. And I'm grateful for how you have shared yourself, really. I think I'm always grateful for having that opportunity, a space of how you get to choose, right? How you offer to present yourself to others. For me, I think I mentioned a little bit Jose Gonzalez, he, him, his, although I'll respond to anything offered with respect. And I wear many proverbial hats. I mean, I'm coming into this space with many proverbial hats, some of which are professional, collegial, and community oriented in terms of the organizations, associations, governance committees, and stuff and so forth that I serve on. But really, I want to honor that transition that has been offered here about what we intend to kind of work with this space. I'll share a little bit of framing, and then we're really going to engage for at least 30 minutes or so in conversation around these topics before we jump into questions from the audience. So the audience, though you're not restricted to only sharing questions at the end, please drop them in the chat or drop them, put them in there, and they'll make a way over to us. And as Francis noted, right, so many acronyms, and you might hear DEI, JEDI, and they all have some variation around equity, inclusion, diversity, access, justice, and so forth. And part of the evolution of that language has been about really to better understand, engage with, unpack, and undo when we talk about like systemic inequities, some which are pretty direct and harmful, as Carla has mentioned and others, that this was, for example, physical and cultural genocide of many communities, and that it matters when we say this is stolen land and these are broken treaties, and this is what stolen labor has been built around our modern day country and societies and states, and that's not an invitation to feel that discomfort and run away, but rather to be able to say, how could we build differently? And hence the evolution of those terms, and for me to unpack that. And I'm going to share 2 slides as to kind of point a bit of that out. I think part of why this slide from Dr. Rupia Maria resonated with a lot of people was to be able to say, we'll encounter all of these terms, and some people will have familiarity with some of them, less with others, but it resonates, right? Because we can recognize an interconnected system of harm, and how this can be perpetuated if we don't do something about it or tackle it or do differently. And what she termed as, colonization being a main driver force of this, the writer Michelle Holiday was kind of saying, even underpinning that as a mechanistic reductionist worldview, is how we maybe only see the natural environment, and through some extension ourselves, as being overly driven by a cognitive kind of engagement with the world, an object basically treating the land, treating nature, treating ourselves and each other as objects, right? And what that can do. And what I have found was that by flipping this, being able to say, in addition to what we're fighting against, it's what we're fighting for, that the language of ecology can be helpful, can be instructive, can provide some orientation. Of course, being attentive that we are, as much as we are part of nature, we also are kind of endowed with specific gifts. And what does it mean to not say, oh, well, let's use this life affirming language and still only be reductive about it. And so hence the invitation, right, of what can be considered sacred, other ways of knowing and being and engaging and respecting the land, nature, and by extension each other. And so that's why with the language of ecology, I put this invitation to my colleagues here to be able to say, if this can be helpful, how do we talk about fire? How do we talk about edge effects? How do we talk about mycelium? How do we talk about redwood habitat and all of these quote unquote natural elements that are also instructive in how do we undo these systems of harms that we have with each other, so that we tackle these. And so that's kind of the framing and invitation in terms of what I'm asking our panelists to engage with. So the first question is going to be an open one to anyone that likes to tackle it first. We're not going to force everyone to go around and say you all have to answer the question in the same way. You are invited to, of course, and you also can just be like, I'll wait to the next question, and you can extend on what others are saying and ask questions of each other. And my first question is, we've been using the term, the word ecology. I've also been using kind of the terms DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and so forth. So really for you, what comes to mind when I use the term ecology, or when you hear words like DEI? How does that resonate with you? Like, what comes to mind? How do you interpret it? How do you engage with it? How do you detach from it? How is it useful to you, not useful to you, and so forth? And I'll leave it open to see who would like to start first.
I'll start. Thank you, Jose. Coming from a biology background, I quickly learned that when I got my undergrad degree at Berkeley, I didn't want to go into academia. And partially the reason why is because I already wanted to get out into the community and start teaching, formally as a teacher, informally as a naturalist, an environmental educator. But academia is wrought with social systems of hierarchies, patriarchal systems where women, trans folks, ethnic minorities such as myself, I'm Filipino. I came here when I was a 5-year-old child, an immigrant, and those kinds of things are barriers for many folks, including myself. And I wanted to work directly with the community, and have been doing so for the past 25 years, not necessarily as an ecologist, but someone who understands the ecology and the different perspectives that are a part of that, not just an academic standpoint, but one that incorporates indigeneity, that incorporates a worldview, a global view. Even though we're minorities in this country, many brown and black folks are people of the global majority. So all of these things come together in play to hopefully ensure that we're taking care of our environment, even though many multinational companies are not taking care of it and using the environment for profit. And in the slides that Jose shared, many of those things can be seen in the first flow chart, but I'd like to shift the perspective to the thrivability and life-honoring worldview that he offered in the second chart.
Thank you, Francis. Anyone else would like to add? Otherwise, I'll have another question ready for you.
I, like Francis, my undergraduate degree is in biology, and I specialize in ecology. And I also quickly realized I didn't want to be in the academic field, and so I realized I wanted to be outside and be connected with the land and the species that I cared most about, and my background or my association with ecology is still somewhat of a more academic association. And as I have moved further throughout my career, and especially now in my current position and working a lot with Leslie, I just have been able to realize how you can weave different aspects of ecology. Ecology is not just an academic word. It includes, the ecology of place and communities and people, and how all of those different aspects interact with each other. And it's something that I am, it's an ever evolving word for me, I guess I should say, that has started out as a very strict academic textbook word and has now evolved into something that's totally different, but in a way is so much more inclusive and captures so many more different aspects of life, and includes so much more diversity just within that one word.
Thank you, Lina. And Carla, you look ready.
Yeah, I was ready. And I just want to say that ecology to me resonates a lot, but as traditional knowledge that's been passed on as teachings from generation to generation. And for me, that word never held any weight because I don't come from a college background. I'm definitely more self-educated when it comes to culture and landscapes and the interaction of our people with those landscapes. There was no book, rhyme, or reason that told me I had to ask all the questions and get those answers by actually going on those landscapes and seeing what those medicines do and what we use those things for in non-excess. And so for me, ecology is just this fancy word of saying how we lived and how we survived and how we continue to thrive and not take too much and have healthy landscapes and be able to return to these places to receive those sources. And then when I think of the term DEI, I mean, for me, I never thought that as an Indigenous woman, I would be included in that. I would think that I would have more priority of say. Unfortunately, with the way that these parks and systems are designed, they are definitely more, I would say, catered to a certain individual that isn't native to the land, that maybe not have a strong relationship, maybe just use it for recreational uses. I don't know. But for me, that word sounds like there's a huge, inequality. Apparently, not enough access for people, not enough, the basics. We all need to breathe the air of the trees. We all need to receive the fresh water in order for us to survive as a people. And so we need access to place. So to diversify that is a God-given right. Everyone deserves those things. And so for me, when I hear diversity, equity, and inclusion, I feel like it's kind of it's a false thing because I don't see it happening all the time. And I don't see many policy changes that allow us to move up in places or to thrive in sacred spaces or to even have access to those places. So to say diversity, equity, and inclusion, I feel like we need to really work harder on what that means. We really need to work harder in the influences that we have to instill those systems, because otherwise we're not going to know how to get along with nature if we don't know how to get along with each other and know that we have to share these things. These things are not just for us, they're for all of us because we need it. And so to me, those words are brand new to me in the last maybe 6 years. But I've been proud to say that in a lot of spaces now, I've been invited to give that story of our relationship to the land and how we offer our different prayers in order to receive these sacred spaces. And so I've been on a lot of panels speaking about it. I've been in a lot of areas speaking about it. And all I know is that the more I speak about it, the more change we need to have, because these should already be in place. There should be no reason that we're talking about these systems because they should already be inclusive to all. Everyone should have access to everything because we all need nature to survive.
Well put. Thank you, Carla. Leslie?
I'll add a little. So I actually I did a master's in conservation biology, and one of the reasons why I got into community outreach was because I felt like the people were out of that lens of what I was getting in academia. And in terms of conservation, we tend to be very species specific. And I think, that's not how ecology works. There's systems, they work together, they flex, they adjust, and humans are part of that. So I think it's so important. That's why I think for me, having the people who inhabit the lands as well being part of the stewardship and the care, because it's a reciprocal relationship. So those are the things that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll jump into an example. And I want to stress the different points that you all brought up, right? One of them is the dangers of being overly caught up in academia and how it can narrow your approach, or it can perpetuate that reductionist model of how we engage with nature. And I've often say, in many cases for me, it's not automatically bad, and it can be if that predominates the way that we engage. Because I think the fragility will kick in and think it's like, you're attacking science. I'm like, no, I'm just saying it's dangerous when we default to that being the only way of knowing and framing and valuing how to understand, relate to, and so forth. And that we can't also just be able to say, as Carla's noted, right, without the degree, then you don't hold any value or credibility and knowledge, because community happened to have been engaging with the landscape pretty well without any academic institutions for the past X thousand years. And so I think it's those important reminders. And so I want to jump into an example because part of this is knowing that we're weaving that space between always being cautious about over intellectualizing something, right? It's like, if you don't know the terms DEI, and we're not here to explain those, this is not what this panel is, then you don't understand the work. But also remembering that these are real lived experiences, as Carla reminded us, like this, these are fundamental relationships with nature in terms of like being alive. And so I want to use the example of fire, because I think fire has become a type of almost case study in quote unquote natural resource management, right? In terms of how we are, knock on wood, I'd like to think we're transitioning out of a model that was repressive, that if any type of fire in the forest is bad, put it out. This is your Smokey Bear type of campaigns. This is the way to say we're protecting the forest, but really because we want to save the wood as a natural resources, I think, rather than considering the thrivability and the health of the habitat. And we're hearing more about how we are, as Carla mentioned, listening to traditional ecological knowledge about the multifaceted value and role of fire. And as you know, the work that Leslie and Annette that you do about understanding that a fire adapted ecosystem for areas like redwoods and sequoia can help. The problem is that if we've been overly repressive, by the time that fire hits, it can be destructive in ways that is not good. And so I'd like to hear from you, what how do you relate to and understand fire, either from that traditional ecological sense or just what you've been learning now, and B, that comparison to what I've often say, like the fire of us not being able to deal with conflict and tension in relating to each other, and we treat conflict and tension as any type automatically bad without understanding, like we might have to have fire conflict adapted ecosystems within ourselves, so that if we don't pay attention to those, by the time that something blows up, it's going to be just as destructive as a wildfire in the landscape. And that's just, then you're just dealing with different consequences. So like, that's kind of what I'm curious in terms of fire. What are the relationships, the comparisons, the metaphor, the challenges, Rose, that you see?
And I can start. So like you said, Jose, I work in a very fire adapted ecosystem. The Sierra Nevada in general is a very fire adapted ecosystem. And historically, there were multiple types of ignition within the Sierra Nevada. And most commonly, that was by lightning, but also very commonly was by indigenous burning. And those two worked in sync together and really shaped the landscape in a really profound way. And by pulling those two ignition sources out of our landscape, we have totally changed it within the last 150 or so years after colonization. And we're living through those destructive effects now. Many of us, if you're joining us from California, everybody who lived in our state this past year was feeling the effects of destructive wildfire this summer. And I think that it's important to note that fire is not bad for the ecosystem, and fire should be a welcome part of our lives. It was part of California's blood almost, in a way, historically. And our ecosystems were shaped for thousands of years by people who lived here before us and are still living here. And that knowledge has been carried down with them of how fire interacts with the ecosystem and how they interact with the ecosystem and how we interact with the ecosystem with fire. And I think that one of the things that I think is really important about bringing fire back into the ecosystem to remember is that fire creates a resilient ecosystem. And fire also increases diversity within our ecosystem on so many different levels. It increases plant diversity, it increases tree diversity, both in terms of species and size of trees, different height classes of trees, different crown structures of trees. And all of those things work in sync. And the more diversity we have, the more resilient of an ecosystem we're going to have. And in a way, I sort of think of that the same with how, connecting people to that ecosystem and thinking about ecosystems as communities of people as well. The more diversity we have within our ecosystem, the more resilient we're going to be as a community. In terms of who we interact with and who we relate to, and what types of perspectives we have and voices we have and voices we lift up within our communities and within. I work with a lot of fire, and so how do we increase voices, more diverse voices, and increase the knowledge within reintroducing fire into our ecosystem so that we can reintroduce fire in a way that is more diverse. The more diverse knowledge we have, the better we are going to be at implementing different practices on the ecosystem and on the land, and the ecosystem will respond. And I think we see it is now we're losing so much in these wildfires that are completely. We've got so much more high severity than we've ever seen historically. We have hotter and drier summers, and it's just fueling this negative feedback cycle. But if we can get more, here where I am, mixed conifer, if we can get more low to moderate severity fire on the landscape and burn around these monarch giant sequoia, which are thousands of years old, some of them. We can't replace them once they're gone. We can build a more resilient ecosystem. And in building a more resilient ecosystem, we can build a more resilient community together if we are lifting up diversity of voices and building diversity into our ecosystem. And so perhaps we think of restoring an ecosystem with fire in a different light. And it's not just the restoration of the plant communities and the forest, but maybe it's also a restoration in terms of how do we restore an ecosystem so that we can continue to respond positively as a community of people with that ecosystem. I think I could go on for a really long time about this, but I want to give other people to talk, a chance to talk as well.
Of course. And please know this won't be the end of the conversations. I know there'll be opportunity to follow up with people afterward. So I appreciate that. So a few other people getting ready would like to jump in. Carla.
Yeah, I would like to share a little about the sacredness of the fire. One of the teachings that my grandfather gave to me and to our people was that there's a burning fire in the sky, Ishman. And that same fire is in the core of our earth, and it's what makes the whole earth move. But it's the same fire that we dance around in ceremony. And that fire represents the fire that's inside of us all. And so that fire, to me, with that teaching, is very interconnected to the sacredness of who we are and how we need to be in the world. From what I know about fire, as soon as you burn things, it gives opportunity for new things to grow. It brings seeds so that the birds can come and eat those seeds. It brings stalks so the deer can come and eat and graze on those stalks. It brings trees so that we can breathe. It brings so much diversity in nature. That fire is so powerful, but it's such a powerful thing that it has to be respected. And that's something that we do all the time. All of our ceremonies are centralized with the fire, many of which fires have been burning for more than 4 days or more. That's very hard to do in modern day California. It's very hard to have a fire for more than 4 days here because of the risks that are involved. But those are for people that are irresponsible with fire. We have a fire tender whose job it is to feed that fire day and night, to know when to keep that fire up and bright for the dances and when to keep it low so that we can keep the sanctity of the wood that is being offered to that fire, to the prayers that are being offered to that fire. That fire is our connection to the spirit world. That is how we pray. We pray to that fire. We pray around that fire. So many indigenous communities believe dancing around a fire is central to how they celebrate and who they are. So for me and the work that I do now in organizing ceremony, it's become a huge obstacle for us because nobody wants to give you a fire permit. Most of the spaces where we want to pray and have ceremony are surrounded by beautiful trees. But that doesn't mean that we're irresponsible with fire. And I have my own personal experience of enjoying a park, which was a 2,000-year-old village of my great-grandfather. I went there to offer prayers for the acorn season. And when I went, I knew to burn sage. I had it in a shell and I offered prayer to the creek. So I had my feet in the creek and I offered that beautiful picture that was captured by one of my relatives that was there to the people that were in charge of that park in that place. And they didn't want to post it on their website because they didn't want to endorse fire. But what I was doing was praying. And what I was doing was praying in a very sacred way that my ancestors did for hundreds of thousands of years. And that's those rules that are put in these places aren't for me in my prayer. Those are for irresponsible people that don't know how to control themselves, who maybe like fireworks, who maybe do barbecues, but not for what I'm there for and not for what I have to offer. And I've had a lot of encounters with a lot of Park Service people who don't think it's right that I burn sage, but I'll continue to burn sage because that's the way we pray. And I'll continue to honor that fire because that fire is what we need to continue on. And that fire is not only a force that takes, but it's a rebirth of life. So we'll always respect that fire so much that our people have stories of the fire. The fire came from the hummingbird, and that's why his throat is red. And that's how important the fire is to our people, that we tell stories of it till this day.
Thank you. And I'll throw in another question, and of course, Francis and Leslie, you can still comment on anything that's been offered. I think that question of responsibility is key, right? To be able to say, if you only view fire as purely destructive in particular ways, then you narrow your view of the responsibility that comes with it, and to actually practice that. And it reminds me of being able to say with call-ins and call-outs, sometimes as maybe like, I care about you, I'm willing to extend this relationship of responsibility because we need to do a little prescribed burning here to have a healthy landscape for what we want to grow. And I think, and the reason I'm using this is because I think so much mechanistic language has also seeped into the way that we value things. How we say like, there's a well-oiled machine to describe a team of people, rather than saying, what if that were a resilient meadow? Like, how does that change your mind about how we would work together? So I want to throw another example. One that I think has become more popular is this idea of like the mycelial network and fungus connections, and the health of a forest is so related to how this network is there. And this is not to over romanticize, right? Because sometimes people think, oh, they're so giving and generous. Like they're also just surviving. They're doing their thing. And they're showing us that collaboration can lead to a lot of thrivability beyond what we might, what I would say that the old traditional Darwin model that was, as Leslie mentioned, so species centered as like survival of the fittest, and maybe doesn't think about collaboration as a factor. So I was curious how that resonates with you both in terms of the ecological sense, but what that means about like health of community.
I can go first, Leslie, if that's okay. Well, just piggybacking on what all y'all said, whether it's Linnea talking about the diversity of voices that are required in order to have a good fire management plan, to Carla so eloquently putting her family's and her ancestors' experiences with fire as being sacred and a gift from the Creator to us. And so your question really sort of ties it together because of that collaboration that we have in our ecological systems and that we should have in our human political structures. And of course, we have the outgoing administration saying things like, where's your rakes and how come you're not raking the forest, to the denouncement of science and all these things that point to how succession of fire has shaped the landscape of what we now know as California in a healthy way, like Linnea alluded to as well. You have these varying perspectives that at first looks like they're different from one another and even opposing viewpoints, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive of one another. In fact, there are many park organizations and tribal organizations coming together because parks have found open spaces and trust that the people who have been doing this from the jump are the ones who know best how to manage the land in a healthy way, in a reciprocal way, giving fire and also taking from the land so that you're honoring the way that your ancestors have lived on that land since the beginning of time. So I think that if we look at it in that viewpoint, where you have different varying perspectives that can come together to collaborate on these projects, then we can continue to move forward in having a healthy ecosystem and restoring, hopefully, a semblance to what it used to be before colonization.
Thank you, Francis. Leslie?
Sure, I'll jump in. I was actually thinking about this idea yesterday, some thought, and I thought, you know, what I just chose to do, my career calling of connecting folks, is sort of like the mycelium itself. Like, I don't believe in creating things or speaking for communities. I think in terms of restoration and representation, it's really important to look at what the community needs are and have things that are community driven. And so what I like to do is think of all those that are in the community and meet them and talk to them and know how they want to experience nature, experience the redwoods, experience the sequoias. It's like, and also when I think about resources, like within this mycelium world, like underground, like they're sharing resources, they're sharing information, and that is what I'm trying to do, is like making sure that communities' voices are being shared, making sure that their information is being shared, so that this is the future of stewardship. It's not one point of view. It's all of those that inhabit. So I think it's a great analogy or metaphor, but it really keeps you thinking about our role and the role of connecting.
Yeah, and I think to me it always prompts questions like, then what does mycelial leadership look like? How do you embody mycelial leadership and so forth? Lynette and Carla, if you want to add in something, and I just want to, for the audience, if you have any questions, throw them in there, but we're going to continue the conversation. We'll see if any come up.
I can add, you're just going to kind of piggyback on what Francis and Leslie said in terms of connecting people and that mycelial network that you were talking about, Jose, I think also comes back to, can be related to fire too, because the more we leave fire out of our ecosystem, the more homogeneous our ecosystem becomes. And with more fire, we increase the diversity within our ecosystem, and those mycelial networks, like you said, are not just sharing resources, and like Leslie said, not just sharing resources with themselves, but sharing resources with each other, with other species. And so the more diversity we increase, with fire above ground, we're also going to have more of that increase of information and resource sharing underground, and that's going to continue to promote a resilient ecosystem. And just like Leslie said, connecting people as if we were a mycelial network together, I think it's a great metaphor for how we can relate to how we manage the land and how we view ourselves on the land and with each other. If we are within mycelial networks and sharing resources and increasing diversity and increasing resilience.
And I think that's a reminder that as much as we value the beautiful, iconic redwoods, so much of that is also dependent on what is healthy underground, right? I think so. It's not an either or. Carla, anything you would add? Otherwise, I'll kind of lead us into a closing question. So, no? All right, so I'll close with this one before we'll do kind of our closing statements. This idea of difference, of diversity, and how like we value diversity in the ecological sense. I would always joke is few people say that's a beautiful monoculture of a forest, right? I love how how it's all exactly all the same trees. And when it comes to people, it's like almost we'll stumble as if like we kind of value difference, but then we struggle with really understanding what it means to engage with difference. And two examples for me have come how nature treats borders, right? That rarely does nature have very rigid bifurcating borders. Humans, we do the opposite. We create border walls, for example. And so in ecology, you have like the ecotone or the edge effect, where like a meadow and a forest come in, and that's a zone of abundance. Or the way that a river flows, emergence comes from divergence, difference, and convergence. So I have to engage with some pulling away, and then with what connects me together, and that creates a flow that's not channelized. Again, humans do the opposite. Let's channel the river. So I'm just curious what comes for you in terms of those lessons about what is the beautiful thing about engaging with difference? How is it this kind of ability to heal sever connections and build what we're looking for?
I'll just go ahead and jump in, but I love the idea of first of all, no walls, and and I'm always just impressed and when I think of like wildlife and those who like share different habitats and how they're so adaptable to changing in different landscapes. Like they can exist in two different landscapes. And I see that as like being adaptable and open to the different worlds that they can live in. So like when I think about like hiking from the rainforest or from the mountains into a rainforest, like the species that live in between those two are so adaptable to both. And I think that's the beauty of diversity. Is just you can adapt, you become resilient because you experience different environments, you experience different points of view, and that makes you, in my mind, like that's what I would love to see more of.
Thank you. Anybody else? Francis?
Yeah, definitely would like to talk a lot about this seemingly metaphorical relationship that you can connect with ecological communities and human communities as well. And oftentimes folks will, look at that and say, oh, that's a nice coincidence, but it's not. It's all interrelated because we are a part of the ecological community, the anthropogenic climate change that we're causing, to the border walls that we're trying to put up, which of course inhibit any type of wildlife corridors that we are, putting in every place else, hopefully, and restoring the health of many ecosystems. Dams are being broken down. The lake behind me, hopefully the water management system is learning from their lessons of the past of mismanaging all the different types of water, especially here in California, where it's a huge issue and where we put our water resources. And, like Jose, when you alluded to riparian corridors, to the borders, to all the channelization. Now, thankfully, the past couple of decades, daylighting of creeks has been a big thing. I think that we're reversing that trend so that we can not only restore our ecosystems, but also the people who have been there. A lot of the reservoirs from Hetch Hetchy to Los Vaqueros here in the Bay Area have submerged villages that have been there from the beginning of time. And that's a big deal because you're putting these sacred places where ancestors are buried underwater because you want to have hydropower. And there are other ways of doing things where we can diversify our green and ecological energy resources so that they honor those relationships with the land rather than denigrating them or putting them aside and continuing to enact the genocide that's been happening to indigenous folks here. So having all those things in mind are important when you're doing land management and water management decisions into the future.
Awesome. And I want to just acknowledge we're going to get close to the time, so I want to make sure nobody gets cut off. So Carla, we'll go over to you, and then Linnea, and we'll go around to make sure you have the opportunity for any closing thought and how, what are ways that people can support you?
I say that the ways to support me and the work that I do is to go check out our website, costanoandrumston.org. You can also go to Sacred Facebook, and you can subscribe to us there at Costano and Rumson Tribe. Also, you can find me on Instagram. We have an Instagram page too. I myself am an artist and I do jewelry. So you can find my art, which is oil painting and shell jewelry at Instagram. But really, I think it's to provide source access. We do a lot of public engagements. We do a lot of land acknowledgements in honor in the Bay Area. And so if you have any knowledge of how we can best contribute in that way, or access to source, or even know the right people to talk to in order to have campouts or anything like that, please let us know and get in contact. And any advocating that you can do for the indigenous people of where you live is great. Please advocate for them and always acknowledge the suffering that they had to go through in order for you to exist where you are today.
Thank you. And then Linnea, Leslie, and Francis.
Thanks, Jose, and thanks, Carla. Keep it brief. I think just in terms of support, I think it's, it's so crucial that we continue to connect, especially youth, to outdoor spaces so that we can foster that connection at a young age and, foster in the next generation of young stewards for the land, and really be more I think we need to be more mindful of how we are connecting those people to the land and how and our youth to the land, and be more mindful of so many diverse perspectives and diverse connections, both historical and present, to the land. And we need to continue to teach that. We need to continue to teach what was, the history of what was done here to our youth, so that they can hopefully start moving in more progress. And I think that's really the key thing for creating a more resilient community overall throughout our state and really within our country. But in terms of connecting with ecology, I think that we create resilience by increasing diversity.
Thank you. Leslie and Francis, we're down to the last 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll keep mine really short, but basically for me, what I think is the key thing is for support is to build relationships. So reach out, let me know about you and your love for the redwoods or giant sequoias and nature and your community. So you can get in touch through outreach at Save the Redwoods League. Outreach at savetheredwoods.org is the actual email, and let's have conversations, because that's the only way we're going to build relationships and understand each other. Thank you.
And Francis, you get the final word.
Oh, that's usually not the case. Lots of my relationships. No, I'm just kidding. Well, sticking with the alliteration of relationships, reconnecting, resilience as well is really important, as we all have been talking about, with our own communities, our own individuality, but not focusing on the rugged individualism that Teddy Roosevelt espoused back in the 1900s, but the mycelial network that we need to have to be able to reconnect with one another. I also want to just finish by saying that despite our resilience, we don't want to have that resilience be further permission for our repression, because we need to work together to move forward, make sure that we are not looking at the colonized viewpoint of our structural organizations, but more so looking at that world viewpoint that Jose put out in the second flow chart that he put out. So I'm gonna thank you for having me, Jose.
Yes, and thank you all. Regrettably, we are at time, so we have the final closing word from our host, and thank you all. I know we didn't get to everything we wish we could have.
Thank you, Jose. From Wild and Scenic Film Festival, I want to thank all of you for participating and sharing your valuable perspectives with us and our audience. Audience, for those of you watching, if you'd like to continue this conversation, please pop over to the Zoom virtual lobby for some productive and interesting conversations. Everyone have a wonderful day. And again, thank you for participating. We really value you.
Oh, hi. I suppose you're wondering what an A-list celebrity like me is doing in a place like this. You must know, I'm saving the world. Oh, hi, Beth. Yep, saving the world again. Did you know that 40% of all the food produced in the United States is thrown away? That means everything that went into that food, the pesticides, the water, the land, was all for nothing. Just look at this perfectly good food thrown in the trash. The pizza with extra Cheerios, these goldfish and Band-Aid tacos. And just look at this perfect trash burger. This pasta dog looks delicious.
You don't have to dumpster dive like Ed Begley Jr. to save the planet. Fight food waste by shopping smart and using what you buy before it gets trashed.
That's way better. Ooh, arugula.
Do your part and find out other world-saving tips at betterthaned.org.
Hello, my name is Felicia Dunn, and I am the Community Engagement Manager for Bear Yuba Land Trust. For those of you who don't know, Bear Yuba Land Trust is a local nonprofit organization that was founded in 1990. For over 30 years, we have been dedicated to protecting and defending the natural and working lands of the Bear and Yuba River watersheds and empowering healthy, resilient communities through nature access and education. I love working with this wonderful organization, and today I wanted to tell you a little bit more about how you can get involved. Alongside our members, volunteers are the cornerstone of our organization. We currently have 6 volunteer programs that you can get involved with. Did you know that Bear Yuba Land Trust oversees the construction and maintenance of over 45 miles of local trails? For anyone who is an avid hiker, you know that's a lot of mileage. We currently can't do this alone, so we rely on our trail stewardship team volunteers. By getting out on the land to help build and maintain trails, trail stewardship team volunteers learn new skills and work out in nature to contribute positively to recreation opportunities. Our next most popular volunteer program that people love to get involved with is our restoration crew. Restoration crew volunteers are responsible for the stewardship and revitalization of BYLT's conserved lands, which include over 4,000 acres of conserved property that we own. If you love restoring native landscapes or just want to experience brand new areas, consider coming out for a restoration crew workday. Recently, our stewardship manager led a workday with restoration crew volunteers out on Mountain Bounty Farm, our first major acquisition for the Forever Farms program. Together, they removed over an acre of Scotch broom from the property. That's about half a soccer field. This type of volunteerism is so important because you are actively reducing fire hazards in a high-risk area and restoring our native lands while doing so. If you are more excited to publicly share how Bear Yuba Land Trust protects and defends lands and provides nature access and educational opportunities, then you would love becoming a trail ambassador or an outreach and events volunteer. Trail ambassadors commit to a season of outreach on local trails to gather recreational use data, while outreach and events volunteers share the mission of Bear Yuba Land Trust with our community and help facilitate our various events that we host throughout the year. Youth program volunteers help facilitate a variety of our youth events, and this volunteer opportunity is perfect for anyone who's excited to become involved with local youth programming with an environmental nonprofit like BYLT. So far, I've shared with you 5 volunteer programs that Bear Yuba Land Trust offers: the Trail Stewardship Team, Restoration Crew, Trail Ambassadors, Outreach and Events, and Youth Programs volunteers. And the last way you can help out as a volunteer with Bear Yuba Land Trust is in the office as an administrative assistant. Administrative assistants help perform office duties for BYLT. This volunteer opportunity is excellent for those who seek to support BYLT in an office setting. We truly couldn't accomplish anything without the support of our volunteers and members, and if you are interested in becoming involved with Bear Yuba Land Trust in these ways, visit bylt.org for more information. Along with becoming a volunteer or a member, you can always get involved with Bear Yuba Land Trust by attending one of our many events throughout the year. With that, I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about Bear Yuba Land Trust and how you can become involved in our wonderful organization. Again, I'm Felicia Dunn, and thank you so much for your time, and to NC Media for hosting us on their program. Happy Earth Day!
Hello, my name is Manuel Maqueda, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey with plastics and plastic pollution. It's really not a journey about plastics so much, but about humans. So over the last 10 years, I have started a number of organizations that are trying to stop plastic pollution and its toxic impacts on humans and on the environment. I'm also a consultant, I'm a teacher. I teach social and environmental entrepreneurship at UC Berkeley, and I'm currently designing the circular economy curriculum at UC Berkeley. And my journey with plastics began in 2008 when I first learned about this. And it was amazing because back then nobody knew that plastics were a problem. And if you Google plastic pollution, you got lots and lots of results about plastics, how great plastics are, what you can do with plastics, whatever. Lots of results about pollution. Pollution is bad, whatever. The two things together didn't exist. And that is actually what hooked me, what got me. It's like we don't have an available name for this to be an environmental issue that humans can talk about. So with that purpose, I started talking to a lot of the folks that have been working on plastic pollution for a while. I realized they were using a terminology that was marine debris. And I learned that that terminology was not there by accident. It had been pushed by the plastics industry, because marine debris, what is marine debris? Coconut floating in the water would be marine debris, I guess. So that got me really revved up, and I gathered all these people at the headquarters of Google in 2009, and we created what we call the Strategic Council on Plastic Pollution. And for World Oceans Day 2009, we issued a statement on plastic pollution explaining that that was the name, and also that it was not a problem of bad disposal, bad waste management. It was a problem of bad use of plastics, irresponsible use of plastics, because you should not make disposables with plastic. So it was a great step, but I still believe that we needed more convergence. So that same year, I founded Plastic Pollution Coalition, which is a global alliance over 150 organizations working together on this topic. But I still thought that there was something missing, and that was that image, that message that would break our heart. Not so much that will open our minds, but that will open our hearts. So I learned about this island called Midway, which is a tiny island. It's only about 3 miles long, and it's surrounded by open water. It's right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, about 2,000 miles, 3,000 kilometers to the nearest continent in every direction. And in this tiny island, millions of seabirds come to nest every year. And there's one type of seabird called Laysan albatross. They're beautiful creatures. They live to be 60, 70 years old, like humans. They mate for life. They are not afraid of us. They're magical creatures. And unfortunately, what they're doing is they're feeding their chicks plastic. They mistake plastic pollution they find in the waters of the Pacific for food. They eat it. They regurgitate it to the babies. So I enlisted a group of artists led by Chris Jordan. He's a famous environmental artist. And we went there and we took lots of videos and photos that spread virally and became kind of a little bit of a cultural icon. And a movie emerged from this effort too called Albatross. And you can watch it for free online at albatrossthefilm.com. It's been screened at the United Nations and it's had an impact. But it was that image, you know, when these babies that have been fed plastic, a lot of them die, and the parents and all the healthy birds leave this island. The carcasses of these babies rot, and they reveal the inside, you know. And you can look at this amazing kaleidoscope, like a mosaic of colors, and you see all these recognizable objects from our daily lives, you know. Well, see golf balls and Legos and toys and lots of bottle caps and toothbrushes and disposable razors, and it really is like looking into the mirror of our culture. The things that we believe are nutritious and we put in our bodies, we put in our minds, and we feed them to the next generation. So it became this powerful metaphor that opened a lot of people's minds and a lot of people's hearts. And it broke my heart open, and out came energy to keep doing what I've been doing for the last it's been 10 years already. I guess that makes me a little bit of an elder or a pioneer. There's something so new. Today, however, you don't need to, if you Google plastic pollution, you get lots of results and organizations and things. And you even don't need to Google it because it'll come to you through Facebook or whatever. Every day there's a message. So now it is an available topic of discussions for humans. There's legislation internationally being passed. The European Union and California and many cities to reduce single-use plastics. So that's all wonderful. However, plastic production and consumption is still growing at a hockey stick. So we still have not even begun to turn the needle. So let me talk a bit more about plastic and why it became a problem and why it's still a problem, and leave you maybe with 3 concepts for you to reflect. The first reality about plastics that we don't think about often is that plastic, which is, by the way, a wonderful, amazing material, is cheap, is light, is versatile, can be flexible, can be hard, it can be colorful, can be clear. It's amazing technology, powerful technology. This material, however, cannot be digested by nature. It's a material the planet cannot digest. But it does fragment. It gets old and ages and breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces that are light, that float, that travel. So with a material like this, humans should have never done one thing, is to use this material to build things that are designed to be garbage. And about 40% of plastics worldwide are used as packaging. So they are designed specifically to become garbage. As a result, all the ecosystems on Earth are polluted. We inhale microplastics every day. We eat microplastics every day. They're in our food. They're in our water. They're in every food chain. Every known environment in the world has them. So that's one concept. The other concept is every plastic that you see around you, that you've seen, is a trade secret. The composition of plastic is a secret. There's a lot of technology that goes into it using additives to give it the amazing properties that it has. but those formulations are owned by a company. So the ingredients of plastic are a secret. Nobody's going to disclose them to you. And these ingredients, these additives, are highly active chemicals that are endocrine disruptors that are linked to lots of illnesses. What humans should have never done with a material like this? Use it to hold food or drink, because you're playing a Russian roulette with your health. As a result, every human, including newborns, are polluted with toxic additives from plastics. That's the reality. That's what we've done and continue to do. And another concept, recycling. How good it feels, right, to put things in those colorful bins. But let me challenge you. You've never recycled in your life. What you do is you put things in a container for collection. So we participate in a collection in some parts of the world where we can afford this. What happens with those plastics? Well, most of them are landfilled, incinerated, or sent to poor countries, where they get landfilled, incinerated, or in the best possible scenario, turned into non-recyclable objects that after a number of years will end up in the garbage anyway. So the small percentage of that will just mean a delay in the arrival on the landfill of plastic. And doesn't stem the need for more and more and more and more virgin plastic. So those are three interesting concepts that may maybe open our minds about how we as a society have taken a very powerful technology, a wonderful material, and used it all wrong. Now let me tell you a bit about what I am doing right now. I started a new organization. It's called Super, like Superman. Super. It's a great name. People, when they hear it, they start saying how super excited they are, etc. So it's a good name. And what it stands for is Single-Use Plastic Elimination or Reduction. And what it is the first single-use plastic reduction and certification tool for businesses. So if you think of the organic seal for food, where farmers can grow food in a certain way and they get certified, it's a similar seal to certify those businesses that make an effort to reduce their plastic footprint in terms of single-use and disposable plastics. So our mission is the systemic elimination of single-use plastics. That's what we're working on. And if you're interested, you can go to super.ngo to find out more and to support us. So we're raising money and also connecting with companies to get certified. But the question again, I started the talk saying that it was maybe not so much about plastics, but about humans, right? It took us decades to realize that we're using plastics in our own way. Decades. And now it's taken us a decade to be talking about this as a group, as a culture. And still the needle is not turning. And when I look at other technologies that are out there, synthetic biology, genetically modified organisms, gene editing, geoengineering, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence. My question is, are we going to do it wrong again? What can we learn about plastic and plastic pollution that can serve us not only to stop this problem now and to live more healthy and sustainable lives, but also to redefine our relationship with emerging technologies? So that's an inquiry and a quest. One final thought maybe for you is, after this talk, review your own use of single-use plastics, because through that, you may find opportunity to engage with others differently in community, to support more local products, to buy things that are less processed, to eat better food, to use less and better cleaning products and cosmetics and so on. And you'll save money, and you'll live more healthy lives, and you'll start opening a little bit of the consciousness of looking beyond what we've been told about technology, and not be like those seabirds that put things in their lives that seem nutritious and colorful and beautiful, and maybe not that at all. Thank you very much.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov.
Hello, my name's Reed Hamilton. I'm a member of Nevada County Climate Action Now. I'm going to tell you how to help stop global warming and save money at the same time. We are clearly feeling the effects of global warming. Much of the state is in severe to moderate drought again, only a few years after a multi-year drought. It's confusing to think about being in a drought again when we have prolonged stretches of cold or very wet winters. But that's what climate science is predicting, that there will be shorter stretches between hot, dry periods and extreme rain events, along with general diminishment of the winter snowpack. The effect we're all really aware of is the threat of wildfire. After only about half of normal precipitation this year, despite a moderately good snow accumulation, the ground is dry and all the forest fuels dry too. This is the future we face, and likely to get a lot worse unless we can turn around emissions from fossil fuels. All that leaves many of us feeling hopeless, but each of us can make a difference. There are simple steps we can all take at our homes and businesses that will have a direct influence on reducing the causes of wildfire and drought and snowpack decline. That's because about 40% of the greenhouse gases that we Americans produce come from buildings. The good news is that the steps you can take as an individual can save you a lot of money in just a few years. Here are some of the things my wife and I did at our house. We installed LED light bulbs. We programmed our furnace thermostat to only run when we were home for about 6 hours a day during the morning and evening. We keep the temperature at 68 and just wear sweaters in the wintertime. We use insulating window blinds to shut out summer heat and lock it in during the winter. We wash clothes in cold water and use the clothesline whenever possible. I set our water heater to moderate temperature rather than hot, and I personally shut off the shower while I'm soaping up and turn it back on to rinse. We fill the dishwasher before using it and when we run it on the most efficient cycle. I clean our refrigerator coils every 6 months, and our furnace filters get changed every 3 months. Our house is relatively new, so I didn't need to add any insulation, but adding extra is the one cheapest and most effective retrofit you can do. When I examined the house for openings where wildfire embers could get in, which is a thing everyone should do, I also sealed any openings where cold could penetrate or heat escape. This is nearly free and can save lots of heating and cooling cost. Insulation plus sealing the envelope of your building are really important. Few of us can afford to replace appliances that aren't worn out. But when we do, getting the best Energy Star rated ones will save you energy and money. At our house, when we replaced our electric water heater, we just got a small, highly rated electric resistance type heater rather than a much larger heat pump type. We still have a gas cooktop, but when it's ready to go, we'll probably replace it with energy efficient induction range. When our refrigerator gets a few years older, we'll replace it with the most efficient new one we can find and save electricity and money as well. For my house, I had 12 solar panels installed in 2005. I added another 9 when I started using big electric motors for my business, and I added 5 more a few years ago to maximize our renewable energy production and save money. The first panels had a payback period of 15 years, but due to decreased cost of panels, the last ones paid for themselves in 8 years. At the peak of our electrical use with my business, our yearly bill was only $43. For many people, this could save $1,200, $1,500, $1,700 a year. And there is still a 30% federal tax credit for the cost of installing a solar system. Currently, a typical home solar system will cost between $14,000 and $24,000. Another of the benefits of the solar system is that when we bought a plug-in hybrid car, we could charge it with renewable energy and make an impact on our transportation emissions as well. Energy savings from our home efficiency efforts actually are helping to power the car. It may seem trivial to conserve energy or increase efficiency in our homes and businesses, but with millions of people taking modest steps, it all adds up. Remember, 40% of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings, homes, businesses, public buildings. Clearly, government needs to lead the way rolling back global warming, and there are very encouraging signs from the new administration in Washington. We can do our part by letting our legislators know that we support efforts to make our buildings very energy efficient. I want to emphasize that the things we do in our home are not because we're the most climate virtuous people. We made these efforts because they were accessible ways to reduce our emissions and help stop global warming. So you can make a difference without breaking the bank or making huge changes in your lifestyle. If you need a new furnace, water heater, range, or refrigerator, there are great choices in all electric models. On the Nevada County Energy Action Plan webpage, the toolkit has lots of suggestions and useful links to help you make choices. The county will also be publishing occasional quick tips about easy things you can do to make a cleaner, safer world. You can also find a link to the toolkit and other useful stuff at nclimateactionnow, that's spelled out, .org, under the Energy tab. Thank you.
We have long been fascinated with gold. It's been a statement of wealth and prosperity for thousands of years. We seem more than ever to be driven by curb appeal and statements of excess. Imagine hearing a noise so constant and for so long that when this noise stops, there isn't a doubt in your mind that something terrible has happened.
I do kind of remember when the rumbling all the time, and one time it stopped, my mom said, oh, they must have had an accident in one of the mines because they're stopping so all the miners can rush to that mine to help.
Nevada County boomed during the gold rush in the mid-1800s. Today, the hillsides are still scarred from the destruction that took place, and our waterways still carry toxins created from the gold extraction process.
When I came to Nevada City, I literally had a what the hell happened here moment. I could see tailings piles, I could see open access or mine shafts, and a friend from the State Water Board showed me that I could suck elemental mercury up from the creek that runs through the property that we were purchasing. The state of California has more than 47,000 abandoned mines. Idaho Maryland Mine was ranked as the #1 top priority abandoned mine by the EPA because of its proximity to our communities and because of the known contamination at the site and the known physical hazards at the site.
A Canadian company called Rise Grass Valley is proposing to reopen Idaho Maryland Mine right outside the city limits. If the permit is approved, the Idaho Maryland Mine will be blasting into the earth for the next 80 years.
Their plan is to, drill for gold. There's actually 2 sites. They're talking about a large site called the Brunswick site, which is not far from our neighborhood behind us. They also have another site, Centennial site, which is nearer to the downtown Grass Valley area.
And the mine that's being proposed is a hard rock mine where they would extract gold out from under the earth, and that involves dewatering the current mine workings. It means creating more mine workings, and it means discharging that water to nearby streams and rivers.
What we're talking about is mining 24/7. We're talking about 100 truck trips a day of moving. They're actually going to take out 1,500 tons of rock every day, and they're going to be transporting that rock, crushing it, grading it, and building it into big piles up to 70 feet high. So not only will we hear trucks coming and going, but we expect to hear excavating and crushing sounds. We expect to hear backup beeps. This beautiful, peaceful neighborhood will not be so peaceful anymore.
What specifically is it that you like about this community that drives your connection here?
I mean, we like it a lot. You know, the trails and kind of the outdoors. The kind of rural atmosphere. So a lot less busy than living in a city. So I think that's the main part of it. And, but I think people are going to be surprised just how limited the impact is from a deep underground mine that we're proposing.
Yeah, I'm just saying that they're not going to want the ground or want to pump the water out of the mine because the ground settles and it's going to start earthquakes again up here. We used to have them all the time.
California is a well-known seismic region, and destabilizing the ground could have terrifying effects.
Shake you off the couch. Our pond opened up one time and swallowed everything. The fish, everything took all in one big swoop down a mine shaft somewhere. Yeah.
If you go down into my ravine, you will in fact see some sinkholes that we can only presume came from prior mining activities.
I'm concerned that they don't have a good track record already right here in town, and to take on a big project like that, maybe beyond them, I don't know. Nevada County has a simple 100-foot setback requirement that everybody's supposed to comply with. Measure 100 feet from the creek and don't disturb it, but they forgot. And in addition to that, they had cut down a bunch of trees and they forgot to get a timber harvest plan for the trees, which anybody who does any timber harvest, you're supposed to get it.
I guess the first thing is that all the land is privately owned, so the resources belong to Rise Gold.
It's not just the two properties that they own, but a massive amount of space beyond those properties where they own the mineral rights as well. And that includes the very ground that I'm standing on right now.
This permit includes mineral rights covering a 2,700-acre span running underneath and far beyond the city of Grass Valley. The mine could be blasted under 900 locally owned parcels of land.
Well, the big problem on this dewatering at the very beginning of this project is that it would be pumping out about 3.5 million gallons of water every day.
Flows that high can scour out a small creek and really take the aquatic life out with it, and cause, irreparable damage for as long as it's operating and beyond.
Millions of gallons of contaminated water would be dumped into the South Fork of Wolf Creek, which runs directly through the heart of Grass Valley, to join the Bear, the Feather, and the Sacramento rivers before finally ending up in the San Francisco Bay.
What we have here in the Sierra Nevada with our fractured granite is a system that can be tapped in many different ways. You stick a really big straw into that, like at the mine site, and start pumping water out of it, it can affect miles and miles and miles away by drawing water through, and that can bring contaminated water into and near these residential wells.
One of the key concerns that we have here is actually economic concerns. We live on our well. It costs us practically nothing. We have wonderfully sweet water. If you take a step back and you say, well, wait a minute, they're talking about bringing in 312 jobs, but the reality is there are 350 private wells that live immediately above the mineral rights area that they own, or within 1,000 feet of that, right? So 312 jobs, but 350 homes that are at risk of losing their water, right? Or having their water fouled. We have had drought for years now, so much so that many people's home insurance got canceled, and we all have had to scramble, and we're paying higher prices already because of the fire risk, and now they're going to take the water out of the ground. Now what's going to happen?
So during the power safety shutoffs from last year, we had a couple of generator fires. Power line fires, we get those quite a few times a year when things are drying out, that it becomes an issue and a concern for us.
The daily power requirement for the mine is estimated to be 6 megawatts, enough to power 6,000 homes. What would happen if we added this additional load to our already insufficient power infrastructure?
Right now, the only part that's within our fire district is down off of Idaho-Maryland Road. I believe it's probably the site where the mine tailings were in the past.
And when it's brought up and exposed to air and water, it can change in composition and create acid mine drainage, which then causes other metals to leach out into dissolved form, and that material then enters creeks.
This is pyrite. This is the firewood for acid mine drainage. This stuff's over 100 million years old, and it looks as fresh as a daisy. Doesn't cause any problems unless you grind it up.
There'll be crushing rock. It'll be basically a rock crushing business.
Their plan is to dump this waste rock alongside Wolf Creek, right on the border of town.
We have mercury that will come out and come into the creek. So it's estimated that 26 million pounds of mercury was actually brought over to the Sierra Nevada and used in both hard rock and hydraulic mining.
You had free gold. And so they crush up the rock and run the crushed rock, which is mine tailings, over a table. And there was mercury on the table, and the gold would stick to the mercury. And then they could scrape the mercury off, and they would have this compound of gold and mercury. Only they lost about 30% of the mercury while they were doing that.
When you go panning and stuff, you pull out more mercury than you do gold.
So not only could it be bringing new mercury or new contaminants into Wolf Creek, it will also likely stir up contaminants that are already in Wolf Creek, further exposing mercury to environments where it can methylate. When mercury methylates is when it enters the food chain and becomes a public health hazard.
So there's plenty of mercury there to kill you if you were to boil it off.
Will this community choose gold and make the same mistakes from the past?
If we're going to have a future for our grandchildren, we need to understand what those impacts are, and we need to be actively, intentionally fixing them so that this area has the most resiliency it can to weather the storms ahead of climate change, of increased population density and growth.
You know, I hope everybody stays involved and you know, on any kind of project, whether it's the Idaho-Maryland mine or some other project going on within your community. Let your elected officials know how you feel. I know we all listen.
Stopping the Idaho-Maryland mine is critical to maintaining the quality of life in Nevada County, but it's just the first step in a long journey. We need to think beyond our own backyards and take a deeper look at our obsession with gold and the consequences of mining. It is time to rise beyond gold.
One day we will cherish this soil, valued more than gold. It's valued more than gold. One day our hands will raise for the way we walk and how we own it. And I am singing for this vision, singing for this vision.
I'll tell you, I'm not really in favor of the opening, but
is gold valuable? Is power valuable? Or is air valuable? Is water valuable? And what do we really value?
Sure, panning for gold out of the river is fun. Digging up the planet underneath people's houses? I mean, is this a joke?
No, that should not be done. I think you should leave Mother Nature alone. You don't have to disturb it. It's been dug up before. Possibly leave it as it is.
So no, I don't think they're going to want it. They're going to want to leave the water in it, keep it stabilized.
I love Grass Valley, and I just don't want to see it go there.
We'll never be moved from here. Our lives will live in the seeds we've sown, calling what's
I'm Richard Thomas, and I'm the chair of the local Sierra Nevada group of the Sierra Club. We have over 1,500 members, primarily in Nevada County, but we also represent Yuba County, Sierra County, and even parts of Sutter County. Our local members are involved in all sorts of environmental issues. We are not specializing in a particular issue. We have volunteers working on the gold mine that's proposed for Grass Valley. We have volunteers that are interested in timber issues in the National Forest. We have volunteers that are interested in water issues. We have interested members in all the local environmental issues. Those members work within the Sierra Club, and if it's important, there is a broader Sierra Club that can come and facilitate additional resources. The Sierra Nevada group is a part of the Motherlode chapter. The Motherlode chapter is centered in Sacramento, and they cover all of northeastern California, from the Oregon and Nevada borders, almost to Yosemite, and all the way to the Sacramento River. Their Motherlode chapter has approximately 15,000 members in those counties. Their resources are much deeper. They have been involved with the Sierra Nevada group in court challenges to the Yuba Highlands project in Yuba County, which was an ill-conceived development project, as well as other issues. And the Motherlode chapter out of Sacramento is one of several chapters in the state of California. And those chapters combined together have representatives in the political arena in Sacramento. So very active in state politics. Additionally, there are Sierra Club chapters in all 50 states in the United States. Local chapters are primarily driven by volunteers, as is our Motherlode chapter and our local Sierra Nevada group. We have no paid staff or employees. The Motherlode chapter out of Sacramento, as I mentioned, covering all of northeastern California, has one paid staff member. So the Sierra Club has traditionally been driven by volunteers all the way back to its founding in 1892, when John Muir became increasingly concerned about the plundering of resources in the Sierra Nevada. He witnessed firsthand the devastation that sheep herding could cause in the mountains and the unrestricted timber harvesting that was going on at the same time. So he and a number of friends in San Francisco joined together, formed the Sierra Club. Now, the Sierra Club has played a very important role in many issues over the years, including the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Wilderness Act, and other national political campaigns. On the local level, we don't have a lot of outings volunteers at the moment. We've lost a couple recently, but we do lead outings. We're one of the few, if not the only, local environmental group that actually requires that our outing leaders be trained. Now, the Motherlode chapter has more outing leaders. They have a singles group, they have a canoe and kayak group, and they have an inner city outings group, which leads outings for students from underprivileged neighborhoods in Sacramento and elsewhere to get those youth out into the wilderness and out into the woods. If you work up the chain, the National Sierra Club offers an incredible variety of outings throughout the United States and the world. I checked their website recently, and between June, when they'll start outings again, and December, the end of this year, they have over 300 national and international outings. These outings are an incredible bargain. They are led by volunteers, so they keep their costs really low. Where their costs for a week out might be $500 to $700, $800 for the week, inclusive of food. If you compare that to private enterprises, smaller cruise lines, or the Road Scholars and those things, the prices are probably somewhere between a fifth and a quarter of what you'd pay for professional outings. So I encourage you to pursue Sierra Club outings. You do not need to be a member to participate at any level. So that's one of the benefits of being a Sierra Club member, is you get regular notifications of those opportunities. So I mentioned the Sierra Nevada group before. We formed in 1983 in response to a couple of issues: an ill-devised plan to expand the city of Nevada City, and then, of course, the Miners Tunnel project, which was proposed for the South Yuba River at what we now know as Hoyt's Crossing. So the Sierra Club, and approximately the same time, the Circle, the South Yuba River Citizens Club, both formed and joined forces and fought the proposal on the river. And they were successful on both fronts, although Circle did not get involved in the Nevada City Development Project, but on the river project. And since that time, they've taken the lead and done an incredibly good job of stewardship of the South Yuba River. In the meantime, our local Sierra Club has been involved, as I mentioned, in a variety of issues. We do have people representing this on the Mine Committee. We do have people on the Climate Action Committee. So we are very involved. We welcome you to join us. We meet monthly, Mondays, first Monday of the month here in Nevada City. We have a management and a conservation committee that meet at the same time. So we would welcome anyone. We have a Facebook page, Sierra Nevada Group, Sierra Club, which is probably the best source of information. We also have a web page, again, Sierra Nevada Group, Sierra Club, and that is accessed through the Motherlode chapter web page on the internet. We look forward to seeing you, meeting you, reaching out to us, and letting us know how you would like to be involved. Local environmental issues, social issues. We have membership meetings, open membership meetings 4 times a year. We have a very active program chair who is working on a variety of programs, some through Nevada County Media at this time, as well as recording some previous programs. And as soon as the National Sierra Club allows us to resume activities, which they have put on hold, any public gatherings of Sierra Club members have been put on hold until the 4th of July. But we anticipate after the 4th of July to resume our meetings, which we hold here in Nevada City at Seaman's Lodge, and join us for our fall outing schedule. So appreciate Nevada County Meeting allowing us this time, and hope you step out and do something for the local community and the environment during Earth Week this week, and of course throughout the year. Thank you.
Hello! Thank you for joining us on this televised version of our Tackling Food Waste with a Plan, a proactive conversation about how we can start to throw away less food at home and reduce our carbon footprint. My name is Lauren Scott. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at Briar Patch Food Co-op, and I'm going to be talking about the relationship between food waste and climate change. Then we're going to hear from Wendy Van Wagner, public health educator and cooking school founder. Wendy's going to share with us how you can use meal planning at home to reduce your food waste. After Wendy, we'll hear from Carly Davenport. Carly Davenport's a certified health coach and a low waste advocate. Carly will share how you can shop the bulk aisle to reduce your food waste. I'd like to thank Nevada County Media for including us in this series on climate change. Tackling food waste is something that each of us can do to ease our personal contributions to a warmer planet. It's a solution that is equitable and that each of us can partake in. That's why Briar Patch is dedicating all of 2020 to addressing food waste through our Food Too Good to Waste campaign. We're taking this opportunity to educate ourselves and offering resources to the community. You can find all of these resources on our website, briarpatch.coop/food too good to waste. Each month, we'll take on a new topic for how to prevent, recover, and recycle food waste. Topics include planning, the benefits of buying in bulk, proper food storage, composting, donating food, and talking to kids about food waste. So I hope the irony is not lost in that a representative of Briar Patch, a grocer, is asking, or rather instructing you to come to the co-op with a plan and to curb your frivolous shopping. We live in a world that tells us to consume. Grocery stores tell us to consume. I'm particularly grateful that Briar Patch, as a grocer, is willing to have these conversations around food waste and what we can do to reduce it. All right, so let's talk about climate change and food waste. Imagine walking out of Briar Patch with 5 bags, and on your way to your car, you drop 2 in the dumpster. Collectively, that is what Americans do. 40% of all the food we produce goes uneaten, and more food is wasted at home by eaters than grocery stores and retailers combine. Annually, Americans send 52 million tons of food to the landfill. That takes up 21% of landfill space. That's more than any other item. Food doesn't just take up space when it's thrown in the landfills, it also produces methane, a greenhouse gas with 25 times the warming potential of carbon dioxide. Consider all the natural resources embodied in food. When we waste food, we're wasting the resources used to grow, package, ship, and store it. Food waste consumes 21% of our fresh water, 19% of fertilizer we use, and 18% of all of our cropland. There are emissions all along the supply chain. Take an apple. An apple takes 18.5 gallons of water to grow. We eat apples all year long. Most of them sit for months in refrigerated storage and are shipped from out of state. In a trash bag, in a landfill, it can take more than 6 months for an apple core to break down. Some of you may be familiar with Project Drawdown, a book that came out in 2017 slated to be the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. While the book came out in 2017, more recently, just this past month, they came out with their 2020 Drawdown Review. So I'd like to share with you a little bit from the 2020 Drawdown Review and encourage you to check it out if you feel so inspired. Here are just a few of their 10 key insights on climate change, in no particular order. Start with number 3. Beyond addressing greenhouse gases, climate solutions can have co-benefits that contribute to a better, more equitable world. I think this is particularly relevant for reducing and redirecting food waste. When we talk about co-benefits of food waste, I'm talking about redirecting food that is edible to people who are food insecure. About 1 in 7 Americans are food insecure. Number 7, some of the most powerful climate solutions receive comparably little attention, reminding us to widen our lens. Many climate solutions focus on reducing and eliminating fossil fuel emissions, but others are needed too. Among the top solutions assessed by Project Drawdown, we find some eye-openers: food waste reduction and plant-rich diets, which together curb demand, deforestation, and associated emissions. Number 9, footholds of agency exist at every level for all individuals and institutions to participate in advancing climate solutions. Number 2, climate solutions are interconnected as a system, and we need all of them. And number 10, immense commitment, collaboration, and ingenuity will be necessary to depart the perilous path we are on and realize the path that's possible. But the mission is clear: make possibility reality. So Wendy will be sharing how to use planning at home to reduce food waste, and I wanted to share with you some of the ways that Briar Patch uses planning to reduce food waste in our supply chain, particularly in the produce department. Our produce team works directly with over 40 producers to plan out a coordinated schedule of produce items and quantities. The schedule is shared with growers 6 months in advance, allowing them to plan accordingly for the growing season. This helps to reduce food waste at the source in a few ways. It takes the guesswork out of what the co-op may purchase from producers. They know how much we need and when we're going to need it. It also allows growers to identify new opportunities. Briar Patch may already have an established relationship with a lettuce producer, and so an emerging farmer can see that on our schedule and plan to grow another item. Let's say arugula. The planning spreadsheet developed by the produce team is truly impressive. While we can't always plan for what shoppers are going to buy, managers across the store use detailed data to plan purchases, keep the shelves stocked, and not overbuy items that will end up going to waste. Detailed data includes looking at seasonal trends, holidays, weathers, and etc., things like that. So I hope you find the tips we give this evening on how to reduce food waste through planning useful in your life. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren, for that wonderful introduction, which really got us thinking about food waste on a global level. Coming from a food service background, I've always been really conscientious in my business practices about food waste and healthy resource management, but it all came from a strictly bottom line place. It wasn't until in my personal life I realized that there were a lot of benefits to meal planning that I became a proselytizer for this practice. I used to think it was a really rigid, boring practice that took the creativity and flow out of cooking and preparing meals. Going to the grocery store every day used to be something that was actually enjoyable and fun to me. But when I had 2 children, I realized I would do absolutely anything to avoid going to the grocery store more than the bare minimum amount of time. The chaos of taking the kids to the grocery store, also just the excess spending that would happen with repeated grocery store trips, and also not really having a plan for what our meals were going to be for the rest of the week were all things that got me really motivated to figure out how to do this meal planning that everyone talks about. So I have a slide here, and hopefully a lot of you can relate to this. This is that idealized version of ourselves that goes to the grocery store or goes to the farmer's market. Maybe we have a beautiful basket and we're picking things that just look good and filling our cart or our basket and thinking like, this is me this week. I am going to be eating all these fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm not really sure how, but I just know that I'll be eating them. And then something happens. On our next slide, we get home from the grocery store and you open your fridge and you realize, oh my gosh, there's already too much food in the fridge. I need to fit these new groceries in. How am I going to do that? And when you take stock of your fridge, it's packed full of food. And in the next slide, a lot of you can probably relate to that. So all of a sudden, in a bit of a panic, you're taking food out of the grocery store from last week that was last week's streams. Now you're packing it with this week's streams of all this fresh food. But it doesn't really change the fact that you are repeating the cycle over and over again. This next slide is a tool that you can put in your refrigerator and have a shelf dedicated to foods that you need to eat first before you go into any foods that you purchase or add to your repertoire for the week. And that's just one step to get you to start thinking about how to go through your food resources before purchasing more. In this next slide, this beautiful refrigerator is one of those other idealized versions of what we could be, how we can be living. But as you can see, everything is displayed in a really attractive way. It's not packed full of food that maybe we don't even remember what it is anymore. And all of these things are ways that we can encourage ourselves to go through the food that we have first before we're purchasing more food. So I'm going to walk you through 6 tips for meal planning. What you really want to do is you want to plan ahead, but you don't want to plan too far ahead. So you want to get enough food for several days or even up to 1 week. But it's been shown that when people try and plan for like 2 weeks or a month ahead with meal planning, there still tends to be some waste because inevitably most people are going to the store to re-up on certain supplies. So you really want to think in advance, but you don't want to think like, okay, I'm planning my meals for a year. You want to think realistically. Before you go to the grocery store, you want to shop your cupboards. You want to shop your pantry. You want to shop your freezer and your refrigerator. Really take stock about what is it that you have on hand? What meals could you make with the staples that you have? What foods need to be used first? What produce could be turned into a delicious soup before you go and restock up on everything? And that's a great way to get an idea of what you actually need to buy before going and having your, your dream farmer's market shopping trip. So really take stock of what you have on hand. Also, planning your menu around your activities for the week is a great way to not get yourself in a pickle where, like, okay, you have a work meeting and then picking your kids up at soccer practice. Are you really going to be roasting a chicken that night? Probably not. So on a night like that, it would actually benefit you to plan something more simple or even have a leftover night built into your weekly schedule. Which brings me to number 4, which is to plan a leftover night. So on a night when you had a little bit more time to create a beautiful meal, maybe a big soup or something that took a little bit more time in the kitchen, make extra so that you have something built in for a night when you need something really easy. And then also the most important tip is to make a list and stick to it. I can't emphasize that enough. Going to the grocery store with just a vague idea of what you want to eat or what looks good is the number one way that you will waste food. So when you go with a list, and you decide, I'm going to stick to this, I'm going to avoid all of the amazing impulse opportunities that are around you, that's how you're really going to buy the things that you need and avoid impulse buys, which grocery stores are actually designed to get us to succumb to. And on a personal note, sometimes when I make a grocery list, I allow myself to have 1 or 2 impulse buy opportunities so I don't feel like I'm depriving myself from anything fun. But I also realize that if I go beyond 1 or 2, then I'm like kind of derailing from my list entirely. I call those fun purchases. And then finally, place your menu and your meal plan on the fridge. That's a great way for your family to see everything, and it's a daily reminder to you that there actually is a plan in place, and if you have a few extra moments at some point in the day, maybe you can do a little bit of prep before dinner time that just kind of builds up to making your mealtime stress-free and actually an enjoyable process for your family. So I have a few other tools available, and one is a meal planner and a shopping list. And this is also available on ivaluefood.org. And it really shows, on one side, it gives you what your meal plan is, and then on the other side, it's your corresponding shopping list. And it encourages you to put down quantities and also take stock of if some of the things that you're planning your meal with are things that you already have on hand. I also have a tool for continuously taking inventory of your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer. And you'll see on this handout, there's an opportunity to write quantities, when you purchase them, and what you have on hand, so that as you're doing your weekly menu planning, you don't necessarily have to go through all of your physical pantries and fridges. You can actually just look at your cheat sheet and see when you purchased something and what quantity you have left. So to wrap up, the top 3 things I would recommend for meal planning and reducing your food waste at home is to check what you have on hand before you start meal planning. And then plan your meals around activities and what your week looks like so that you're actually having time to prepare the things that you set out to prepare. And then finally, place your menu on your refrigerator so you're seeing it on a daily basis. Meal planning can be really fun, and it actually can be a creative exercise in resource management. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of flipping the lens to be able to see it that way. So I hope you have fun with your new meal planning tools.
So what's so great about our bulk department? Briar Patch has such a wide variety of products to choose from, including oats, rice, flour, cereal, sugar. We have over 200 different varieties of herbs and spices to choose from. You're going to be using less packaging, and you can also choose how much of a product that you want to buy. So you don't end up throwing away product like that big giant bag of xanthan gum that you bought for that random recipe that you'll probably never make again. So my name is Carly, and I'm the Briar Patch merchandiser, and I've been working in the natural food and supplement industry for over 5 years. And I've also recently decided to become a certified holistic health coach. Aside from being a health coach and the merchandiser, I am a low-waste enthusiast. The more I saw pictures of all the garbage floating in our oceans and our resources being depleted to meet the demands, I knew that we had to make a change. As you may have seen in last fall's Vine article, I decided to go zero waste for 1 week. I still continue to live my life as low waste as I can, and I'm so thankful that we have so many resources in town for low waste options. And also so lucky and thankful that we have the Briar Patch and the bulk department at the Briar Patch. So I want to share with you how easy and fun it is to shop at the bulk department at Briar Patch. My first tip is to plan. This is so important. If you come without a plan, it can be kind of messy. So first, I will make a list on my phone of all of the items that I need for the shopping trip, and then I will count out how many jars I'm gonna need for the trip, and I always end up throwing a few extras in there because you never know what you're gonna find. We also do have reusable bags, paper bags, and jars for your convenience if you don't end up bringing your own. So for example, if you're gonna fill your jar up with cashews that I brought here, first off, if you bring a jar from home, please make sure that it is a clean jar. So First, what you're gonna do with your jar, you're gonna tare the jar. And you're probably like, what the heck is a tare weight? So tare weight is the weight of the jar, excluding the product that you're gonna put inside. So that when you weigh it out in the end, you're not being charged for the weight of this, just the product. So we're gonna put it on the scale here, and you'll see that it says 0.38 pounds. So there's these little stickers here at the bulk department that you can write this weight down and put it on your jar. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And along with the tare weight, you're gonna wanna put the PLU of the product on your jar as well, so they can ring you up accurately at the front. And you'll see it says PLU followed by a number after it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that down as well. So then once you've put your sticker on your jar and you've tared it and you're all ready to go, then you can go ahead and fill your jar up with the product here. And then you can go to the front and your checkout, and the cashiers will know how to ring you up and weigh the product as well. And you're all set to go. So that's pretty fun, easy, and simple. So for the week of Earth Day, April 20th through 26th, Briar Patch is going to be hosting a bulk sale. All bulk items are going to be 10% off, excluding coffee, tea, and herbs. And I think that's a really good time to come check out our bulk department and stock up of any of your essential needs. Thank you.
One of our goals as an agency is to bring that awareness that in our community there's still needs out there for firewood, especially in the senior population, and that as together as a community, we can meet that need.
Each year gets a little harder and a little harder, but just seeing this, I feel like one of the lucky ones.
Fighting wildfires is dangerous work. Firefighters and pilots like us put our lives on the line every day to protect Californians. But there's a new danger that we're seeing more and more. Hobby drones flying in a fire area pose a serious threat to us, our firefighters, and the public below. A collision with a hobby drone could cause damage, injury, or even death. We need your help. Don't make our jobs even more dangerous. Remember, if you fly, we can't. Learn more from CAL FIRE at fire.ca.gov.
Hi.
If there were 20 building departments out there, I would want us to be the #1 for customer service.
The Over-the-Counter Wednesday program is an opportunity for you to schedule a 1-hour-long appointment to bring in a set of plans and be able to have them reviewed, if possible approved over the counter, get your permits issued, get you started on your project in a very short period of time.
So this site that we're on right now was 100% over the counter, same day issuance of the permit.
We get everyone. We get draftsmen, we get homeowners, and we get general contractors.
Come in about 20 times a year to pull a permit, and so this program is ideal for me.
It's really simplistic. I think that's the beauty of it. Whenever you want to build a house, you want to build a deck, you want to remodel your kitchen, you come into our office and in one day they submit plans, they get the plan review done by multiple departments sometimes depending on the project, and they get the permit in the same day.
Previously, a project would have a 2-week time frame for a first review. There'd be a written list of corrections, and then there would be a second review and potentially a third, so call it 3 to 4 weeks.
We didn't have any appointments. You just showed up.
Construction is very hard with scheduling. When there's a gray 6 to 10 week hold up for plan review and maybe resubmittal, you really don't have a start date. For clients, that's tough.
The over-the-counter plan review program cuts down that 2 to 4 week process down to a day or two process. So we schedule that date with whatever department needs to look at it. We schedule all those people out to be available at 10 o'clock or whatever their appointment date is to look at it all at the same time.
Our role is to look at the applicable zoning district. We'll look at setbacks, lot coverage. We may do some research on the origin of the lot.
We use all the existing resources we have. We just sort of condense it down. The first time a homeowner goes through it or a contractor goes through it, they've dealt with us before, they're like, well, what do you mean I can get my permit now? It's almost like they're in the twilight zone, sort of thing, because that's not what they're used to.
They love it. They love being able to schedule an appointment, for one. Fits their schedule. They can get their appointment the day they want it and get the plan check done that day and walk away with a permit. They can start building their deck or their pool or whatever.
This process is a new avenue for people to obtain permits in an easier fashion.
It takes one more holdup out of the equation.
It's great for me. It's enjoyable to just meet with someone.
I think it's great.
It's a good feeling to get people what they want. It is. It's nice.
I would like to see it maybe Wednesday, Thursday.
The coronaviruses are a family of viruses that we're familiar with. We know that they cause respiratory tract infection, and most people are going to be familiar with them from causing the common cold. That's a coronavirus, but they can cause more serious infections like SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. We remember that from years ago. And then there's this new coronavirus, novel coronavirus, that currently originated in China. The original cases, it appeared that it was only transmitted maybe from animals to humans, but now it's clear that there's person-to-person transmission. And we've seen cases in healthcare workers who have not been with any animal contact. So we know the healthcare workers are getting it from taking care of patients. So we know there's person-to-person transmission. It starts off just like any other cold, so fever, cough, runny nose, overall feeling bad, and then it can progress and cause more severe illness, including pneumonia, and that can be fatal. The public health authorities have developed tests for this, and so anybody who is at risk for this present would be related to travelers or contacts of travelers to areas where we know that this is occurring. We encourage people their doctors, their healthcare providers, to report this to public health and get testing if indicated. Influenza is completely unrelated to coronavirus, so getting immunized against influenza will only protect you against influenza. There's no vaccine against coronavirus at the present time, and there's no specific therapy for the coronaviruses at the present time. Right now, all the therapy is supportive, meaning that if somebody has pneumonia, for example, then they might need extra oxygen or they might need to be on a ventilator, but no specific antiviral therapy. The only way people can protect themselves is to try not to be around sick people and to use respiratory etiquette. So people who are sick should be coughing into their arms. They should be washing their hands frequently. If you're sick, you should stay at home. If you're around sick people, try to get away from them. I know that's not always feasible. And then hand washing is always appropriate with soap and water or with the alcohol-based hand gels.
Did you know that embers from a wildfire can fly over 1 mile and can smolder for days before starting a secondary fire? It only takes one ember to bring wildfire to your home. Learn about defensible space and how you can make your home more fire resistant at readyforwildfire.com.
Got back from a house down in Penn Valley. They had 2 huge apple trees. We gleaned 286 pounds.
We are at Interfaith Food Ministry. They serve 8,000 clients every single month, and every one of these families can come twice a month and they get a full shopping cart of groceries.
I've stood in those lines, and fresh fruit and vegetables especially are amazing. And it's been so much fun. I mean, it's just fun.
If you have fruit trees in your home, give Sierra Harvest a call and we will get the volunteers to come and glean for you on a day that works for you. If you want to be a gleaner and be a volunteer, there's also an online application.
Hi, I'm Shavati Karki-Pearl. I'm the Public Sector Manager with Waste Management and here to talk to you about Earth Day. Typically, Earth Day is assigned a different theme or area of focus each year. This year's theme is Restore Our Earth. For decades, our world has been becoming more convenient, but more convenience has brought more waste. It's why Waste Management takes our duties as an environmental steward seriously, and why we're on the front lines of managing waste and recycling. We use every tool at our disposal to make sustainability an integral part of everyday life. After investing in sustainable technologies, educating our friends and neighbors about how to recycle right, and analyzing our own environmental impact, we've learned that applying our continent-wide expertise at a local level can benefit the entire planet. But just because we're willing to think local doesn't mean our thinking is small, far from it. Waste Management's environmental goal for this year is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while protecting the environment. Currently, the services we provide avoid 3 times more greenhouse gas emissions than we generate in our operations. And our 2038 goal calls for reducing even more greenhouse gas emissions, up to 4 times the greenhouse gas emissions that we generate through our operations. All of our environmental goals contribute to this overarching goal of emitting less, reducing, avoiding, and offsetting more. To achieve this goal, our strategy is to reduce emissions from our landfills, fleet, and electricity use, while increasing the emissions avoidance services that we provide to our customers. And between now and 2038, the bar above the zero line will decrease as we reduce operational emissions. To view Waste Management's 2020 sustainability report, you could go to sustainability.wm.com. Let's now take a look at our trash in numbers. Based on a study conducted by the EPA, California set a goal of achieving 75% diversion by 2020. Last year, Nevada County generated around 87,600 tons of trash with a total of 48% diversion rate. This means that we were able to divert 48% of our materials from the landfill by our collective recycling efforts. While this is good news, you can tell that we're not quite near our state's goal. If we all learn to recycle correctly, we can increase our diversion numbers. And this basically means less greenhouse gases being produced by our landfill and more material available for processing raw materials that can then be used for manufacturing and thus contributing to what is called a circular economy. Waste Management has challenged its employees to make a pledge for Earth Day by choosing one activity that will make a difference. My pledge was to start composting. I've started my own little compost pile this year indoors by buying a small 5-gallon bokashi pail that was recommended by a friend. Here are some ways that you can contribute to the earth and our environment. The 4 R's that everybody's aware of: reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. You can start at the source by being a thoughtful consumer. Purchase items that have minimal packaging and make sure that packaging is replaceable or recyclable if you can't. Try and reduce single-use items, reverse the disposable culture. Reuse as much as you can, especially bags, containers, and jars. Think before you trash. Clothes, toys, electronics, books, shoes of all kinds, these can all be donated and passed on. Recycle and recycle well. Throw only clean and dry paper or cardboard, glass, plastic, and metal cans in the recycle bin. And think carefully about the food you consume. Buy only what you need when you need it. If possible, donate any excess packaged foods or produce. As for food waste, can you perhaps create a small composting project at home with your family or feed some of it to farm animals? I personally am learning a lot about food waste recovery from my friends in Nevada County. Let's talk about contamination now. Here are the ways you can contaminate your recycle bin. 1, by throwing items in there that are not recyclable, like fabric, rubber, foam, or products such as toys made of mixed materials. 2, by throwing items that are hazardous and compromise the safety of the hauling company's employees, trucks, or equipment at the sorting facility. For example, tanglers like hoses, plastic bags, and electrical cords or batteries, pressurized containers, and other inflammable items. 3, by throwing in soiled items that would otherwise be recyclable, like takeaway food containers or bottles filled with liquid, which could potentially soil your whole cart. Earth Day is traditionally an opportunity for organizations and advocates to increase awareness of environmental issues of the moment. And today, many communities, including ours, provide an opportunity for its residents to get together and clean up litter, plant trees, and reflect on sustainability practices that they can then participate in or employ in their daily lives or businesses. I'd like to invite you to simply educate yourself and learn more about the need for us to recycle properly and its impact on our environment. You can start by visiting nevadacounty.wm.com for information. Join a community-curated public group on Facebook called Waste Not Nevada County. You can ask questions there, share tips and resources, find events and opportunities to reduce waste. The earth is a gift to us all. Let's keep it healthy and green. Thank you.
I am the tender snowflakes that blanket the Sierra Nevada. I flow through the meadows and carve my own path. I gush down steep slopes, building icy cascades with my water. I am mighty. I am alive. I am the Bear River, and the proposal to build Centennial Dam puts me at your mercy. I am loved by many. I sustain life flowing from faucets for thousands of people. My water is used for agriculture and electricity. In summer, I am kept alive thanks to huge diversions of water from the Yuba River. More than 129 billion gallons of Yuba water are sent down the Drum Canal every year. To visualize that, imagine a cube of ice the size of a football field, but it would be 56 miles tall. This water will never again kiss the banks of the Yuba River. And thus, the fates of the Bear and Yuba rivers are bound together. During summer, when the South Fork of the Yuba River is barely flowing at about 40 cubic feet per second, the Drum Canal removes Yuba water at 10 times that rate upstream. I am the Bear River, but I am mostly made of Yuba water, which will be sold to customers down the line. Yuba water that began at Donner Summit likely finds the Drum Canal and passes into Rollins Reservoir. After Rollins, I am then free for an exhilarating 6 miles. These 6 miles would lie at the bottom of Centennial Reservoir. Here I carry excited whitewater paddlers through beautiful green canyons. I bring gold for locals and tourists to make a withdrawal at my banks. Fishermen, hikers, bird watchers, and many more come here to admire my wildness. I am stopped again in Combi Reservoir. Is this the end? Far from it. I then flow to Camp Far West Reservoir, holding another 34 billion gallons if it is full. Most of my water has been sold before reaching this reservoir. Below here, much of my water is used to grow rice. Some of my water will continue down the lower Bear River, passing through the Sacramento Delta, and then under the Golden Gate Bridge before I'm back in the Pacific Ocean.
These rivers have spoken to me my entire life. I am from these hills, and like you, I love these rivers. I could not believe my eyes when I saw that NID, the Nevada Irrigation District, had plans to build Centennial Reservoir on this celebrated stretch of Bear River. This is where my best friends and I learned to kayak 15 years ago. I flipped my boat right here, and I learned a deep respect for the river. This place is a gem in our community. I am the third generation of my family to call these watersheds home. As a filmmaker, I felt compelled to speak on behalf of Bear River. But filmmaking costs money and time, and I was hesitant at first. Furthermore, I love NID. I still do. I've traveled around the world and still have never tasted water finer than this. They provide water to my mom and keep her home safe from fire, and that means a lot to me. But then I went to NID's public meeting last spring, I saw this dam for what it is. Dozens of my fellow citizens courageously stepped up to the microphone. They were afraid for their safety, for losing their heritage sites, recreation, the river, income from tourism, and afraid of losing their homes. I knew then that I had to make this movie, and I'm doing it for them. I had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back. Americans removed one dam every 6 days on average during 2015. So there must be good reasons to take a careful look at dams and reservoirs. I think our community needs to decide whether or not we build the dam. After all, we will pay for it in more ways than one. In this film, let's ask 3 questions. Would the dam solve the problem? What are the costs? And what would be the lasting effects? Question number 1. Would the dam even solve the problems? The 2 greatest water problems that we face are decreasing supply and greater demand. NID has filed a request to remove 72 billion gallons of water from the Bear River, or a football field 31 miles tall. That's a lot of water. NID claims Centennial will help us through climate change because snowpack is decreasing. But reservoirs don't make water, they simply catch it if there is extra. We don't even fill the existing Bear River reservoirs 100% of the time. So how much extra water is there to catch? Only 5 times in the last 18 years has there been enough extra water to fill NID's request. According to a scientific paper released by the USDA and US Forest Service, future precipitation is projected to decrease. This means less water, and a greater likelihood of being unable to even fill the existing Bear River reservoirs. California's growing population of 39 million people use more than 7 billion gallons of water per day. Regardless of whether precipitation stays the same or decreases, it is literally impossible to grow population forever. So why did they ask for 10 times that amount of water? Is there a plan to develop new housing for 10 times more customers? Is NID planning to sell the water outside of our district? Do we want more Yuba water sold to fuel more urban sprawl? NID may be forced to guarantee that water supply even during times of shortage. Where will NID turn when they need more water? Would they attempt to increase diversions from the Yuba River? In a shortage, they may be obligated to. This is the danger of selling new municipal water contracts to fuel the urban sprawl from Sacramento. Furthermore, Centennial Dam would be located above Camp Far West Reservoir, which is owned by South Sutter Water District. They sell water to irrigate 43,000 acres of farmland. If Centennial were built and NID removed 72 billion gallons of the Bear River, it is highly likely that less water would go to Camp Far West Reservoir, therefore threatening those farmers. South Sutter Water District has filed a protest against Centennial Dam for this reason. This diversion flows to thousands of acres of farmland, and the extra water pours over this wall back into the lower Bear River. There would have been no extra water flowing over that wall into the lower Bear River 13 of the last 18 years if NID had removed 72 billion gallons. Question number 2. What are the costs of Centennial? Centennial Reservoir is designed to rise above Bear River 250 feet, but as it empties throughout the year,
The surface could lower 120 feet from the upper rim. These images of Oroville Reservoir show you what Centennial could become. A barren hillside, more than 10 stories tall. Would you want to buy this lakefront property? This would inundate prime habitat for bobcats, bears, birds, and countless other species. These barren walls are essentially an ecological wasteland, and the lake would substantially constrict animal migration corridors. Reducing the amount of water flowing down the lower Bear River would deteriorate an area designated as critical habitat by the National Marine Fisheries Service, further endangering steelhead, sturgeon, and salmon. Centennial would flood the graves of Native Americans dating back thousands of years. There are sacred places that are still in use today by the Nishinan people in an unbroken chain of rituals carried on for countless generations. Perhaps the greatest burden would be placed on our fellow citizens, the 25 families who would lose their home. While I have lost sleep at night because of this project, I'm sure it is nothing compared to the suffering of our fellow citizens whose families would be displaced. NID publicly states they have already purchased some homes, but they could resort to eminent domain in the future to secure the rest. Centennial would flood sections of public lands owned by all of us and managed by the Bureau of Land Management. The local BLM officials are opposed to giving up that land, so NID is going through Congress to obtain it. Unfortunately, NID would also be able to circumvent the regulations and environmental protections that were just set in place after 7 years of negotiations with federal and local agencies. NID would also have to acquire land in Placer County, which is out of their jurisdiction. Reservoirs lose approximately 5 to 16% of their water annually through evaporation. Already the existing dams on the Bear River may be losing about 4 billion gallons of water annually. For perspective, you could fill more than 6,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools with that evaporated water. Another reservoir means more evaporation. Reservoirs are also good at catching sediment. Old reservoirs become inefficient and must be dredged to return to peak performance. It's part of the deal. Our Sierra Nevada rivers are still suffering from the region's long gold mining history. During the gold rush, roughly 8 to 9 million pounds of mercury were released into the environment, and it is still here, trapped in the reservoirs, entering the food chain, poisoning the fish, and anyone else who eats them. NID's customers will be paying back a debt costing hundreds of millions of dollars, with interest decades into the future. It is uncertain where the money will come from and who is investing these hundreds of millions into this project. If NID didn't pay back the loan, could these outside investors obtain ownership of the dam? Question number 3. What legacy would Centennial leave? Centennial Reservoir would worsen global climate change. We now know reservoirs release methane, a gas 35 times more effective at warming the planet than carbon dioxide. Reservoirs around the planet release so much methane, it is equivalent to roughly 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually. We've discussed measurable losses, but what about the immeasurable ones? I learned to kayak on this stretch of river, and if I have a kid, I would want to teach him or her to kayak there too. We love the wildness of this place we call home. How many of these gems do we really want to lose? Americans are removing dams at a rate of 1 every 6 days on average, but it's not cheap. If we want to remove this dam in the future, how many millions would that cost us? Centennial Dam just doesn't sound like a good idea, especially if there are better solutions for securing our water supply. Let's explore some better solutions. If we dredge the existing reservoirs, we would open up immense amounts of new water storage. If we also seal up sections of the 460 miles of ditches and canals, we would save an incredible amount of water. What if NID, like Roseville, invested in infrastructure to inject water underneath Lincoln, storing water in the aquifer, and then removing the water when demand increases? We are already rich in water. More than 50 inches of precipitation fall in Nevada County every year, on average. A rooftop the size of 1,800 square feet could catch more than 56,000 gallons of rainwater most years. This is about 280 days of total water use. If, instead of an expensive dam, what if we invested in water harvesting? The future development of Lincoln is currently a clean slate, and we could build every one of those new homes with infrastructure to harvest their rainwater. Installing a water harvesting system is very cost-effective when the house is initially built. No single solution is a panacea, but if we combine these alternatives, we would be investing in a future with more security of resources and finances. It seems there are plenty of innovative ways to manage our water without building another big, expensive dam or removing 72 billion gallons of the Bear River. I don't think we need to drown another 6 miles of this precious valley or a river that has already been so compromised. We don't need to demolish the homes of our citizens or flood the graves of past native residents. We don't need to worsen climate change or put more toxic mercury into our fish or our families. We don't need to threaten the Yuba River. Let's not be angry towards NID for considering Centennial Dam. Let us be sympathetic, because sometimes the hardest and right decision is turning back before it's too late. The weight of this project rests on NID's shoulders, so let's wish them the strength and wisdom required. NID needs to hear from you. We only have to convince 3 of the 5 NID directors, and this whole dam problem goes away. We can do that. We might have to get every person in the Gold Country talking about this, but we can do that too. If we care, then let's act. Educate yourself and others on the facts. Support the organizations who are devoted to the cause. And most importantly, commit to your future generations, to the community, and to the river. This is not an end, but a beginning.
I am the Bear River, and I am proud of this community every time you keep a place wild and protected. It's time to come together and stand up for the ideals you hold most dear. Don't underestimate yourself, and don't overestimate the opposition. Now is the time for each of you to do whatever it takes to convince NID that Centennial Dam must be stopped and the rivers must be protected.
For no worries, worries and troubles come around. Said I don't look for no worries, worries and troubles come around. We'll keep on turning. Gotta keep my feet on the ground. Nobody saw me crying. Nobody knows the way I feel. Said nobody saw me crying. Nobody knows the way I feel. said the way I love that woman, she's bound to get me killed.
Hi.
Thank you to Stifel Financial, proudly helping individuals pursue financial goals, businesses and organizations raise and protect capital, and communities offer a higher quality of life. To learn more, visit www.stifel.com.
Wildfire danger is high. The extreme drought has caused tinder dry conditions across the state. About 95% of all wildfires in California are caused by people. So it's up to all of us to take steps to prevent sparking a wildfire. Use outdoor equipment before 10 a.m. and never on hot or windy days. Don't use lawnmowers or weed trimmers with metal blades on dry grass. Make sure your vehicle is properly maintained with nothing dragging on the ground. Remember, one less spark means one less wildfire. Learn more from CAL FIRE at readyforwildfire.org.
Ever wonder what causes those fires on the side of the freeway? It's stuff hanging from the back of your vehicle. Come on, guys. If you have a chain back there, be careful. It could start a spark, and that could cause a wildfire. So every time you're outside of your car on a road trip, getting gas, make sure there's nothing hanging back there, because one less spark is one less wildfire.
Smokey Bear says, have a spark-safe day.
We are here for a very short period of time. My goal is to make sure that the impact that I create, it's a good one for future generations. My name is Javier Zamora, and I am a farmer, and I own JSM Organics. We grow lots of strawberries, vegetables, and flowers, all organic. My farm is located in Monterey County, about 3.5 miles away from the coast. What makes this area really unique is our weather conditions. This is a strawberry land where Mother Nature allows us to grow these beautiful fruits. My ranch that I now own is a 200-acre ranch, and 120 of those acres are part of a conservation easement. If I didn't have a partner like the Elkhorn Slough Foundation that put in the money to have an easement on my property, it would have been really difficult for me to own a piece of land. And what's a farmer with no land? It's like having a painter with no canvas. How do I manage a farm this size organically? We allow Mother Nature to do its thing, and we're not pushing things in a way that would jeopardize the flavor, because we don't use any chemicals. Conventional people would spray for those insects. We actually vacuum them. We have a vacuum that is mounted on a tractor, that it goes above the canopy of the strawberries, and it actually gives those bad beetles a ride for their money. About 2 years ago, I was approached by a packaging company. They had developed a new way of packaging strawberries or different vegetables with no plastic. Immediately I say, yes, this is it. My customers are going to be very happy with this. We don't need any more plastics to be dropped in the ocean or landfills. This is a beautiful package that You can go ahead and throw it in your compost pile, but it's definitely not going to be in the ocean. My philosophy about workforce is that people need to be happy and get paid well for what they're doing and what they're contributing to, in this case, the farm. I'm really happy to say that my employees get at least $2 to $3 more per hour than what some people around will pay them. So we have employees that are really happy, and we get people that are really eager to come and work for the farm. Can't think of, how sad the past was or why didn't I start farming immediately when I came to America. That's just the path that destiny had for me. Now that I own a farm and I can have lots of people being fed out of it, makes me extremely happy.
Right now, there is a problem taking place all over the world that you probably aren't even aware of. Elephant riding is a glamorized activity in society today, but behind closed doors, it's not as pretty as it may initially appear to be. Here's why I believe elephant riding should be taken off your bucket list. Acquiring an elephant for riding is a brutal job. Baby elephants are ripped from their happy lives and loving families at an early age. Not only this, but the protective mothers are often murdered in the process as well. The elephants are then taken and put through a process called the crush. The elephants are tied up so they are completely unable to move, and then brutally beaten and tortured with tools specifically designed to inflict pain called bullhooks. In this process, the elephants can also endure being burned, starved, and forced to stay awake for days at a time. This is done so the elephants' spirits and hopes are completely crushed, so they oblige to all of their commands out of fear. This process is so brutal, almost half of the elephants don't survive. Not only is elephant riding harmful to the elephants put through it, but it's affecting the entire species of elephants as well. Currently, there are 6,500 elephants currently living in Thailand. Out of this, 2,500 of these elephants are poached for work. In the wild, an elephant's lifespan is 70 years, but in captivity, an elephant's lifespan is only 30 to 40 years. This shows how much elephant riding is affecting the extinction of elephants. So how can you help? If you or someone you know is planning on visiting a place in which elephant riding is popular, make sure to do your research and not support companies that are cruel to their elephants. You can also donate to elephant sanctuaries and rehabilitation centers such as David Shelvick Wildlife Trust, International Elephant Foundation, and World Land Trust.
Oh, hi. I suppose you're wondering what an A-list celebrity like me is doing in a place like this. You must know, I'm saving the world. Oh, hi, Beth. Yep, saving the world again. Did you know that 40% of all the food produced in the United States is thrown away? That means everything that went into that food, the pesticides, the water, the land, was all for nothing. Just look at this perfectly good food thrown in the trash. The pizza with extra Cheerios, these goldfish and Band-Aid tacos. And just look at this perfect trash burger. This pasta dog looks delicious.
You don't have to dumpster dive like Ed Begley Jr. to save the planet. Fight food waste by shopping smart and using what you buy before it gets trashed.
That's way better. Ooh, arugula.
Do your part and find out other world-saving tips at betterthaned.org.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.